Imagine being a completely average teenager named Sora Mukojima, only to end up stranded on a chunk of rock floating in a literal abyss. Stranded solo in a monster-crawling wasteland, his only game plan at first was running for his life until running stopped being an option. Like they always say, comfortable lives breed soft people, but absolute nightmares forge absolute beasts. Flash forward 10 years, Sora's grip on reality was slipping his mind, fracturing as he greedily absorbed the life force of every freak he slaughtered. Fast forward 50 years, and the dude was still on a relentless killing spree, tearing through and devouring over 4 million nightmarish creatures. By the time he dragged himself out of that hellhole, humanity was completely erased from his DNA, turning him into the ultimate apex predator in a world currently getting overrun by its own monster apocalypse. But let's rewind. Sora found himself back in that hazy, depressing void, standing on that exact same hovering rock. Thick fog choked the ruins of crumbling old-school European mansions, giving off heavy ghost town vibes where nothing could possibly survive. Suddenly, a silhouette cut through the mist. A mysterious dude locked eyes with him, waved away the smog, and beckoned the teenager closer. His message was chillingly simple. He'd be chilling at the absolute brink of the abyss, waiting for him. Gasping for air, our main character snapped awake, tangled in his bedsheets. He rubbed his eyes, grumbling about having that exact same twisted nightmare. A sudden yell from down the hall warned him he was about to miss school, prompting Sora to holler back. Still, he couldn't shake the creepy feeling that both the abyss and that shadowy guy were intensely familiar. Swiping the steam off the bathroom mirror, he brushed off the vision as severe study burnout. He spat out his toothpaste just as his dad peeked in, teasing him about sleeping in. Rolling his eyes, Sora fired back, reminding the old man he was 15 now and needed zero babysitting before snagging the bottle of mouthwash. He loudly roasted their cramped living situation, joking that a bigger apartment meant he wouldn't be subjected to his dad walking around in his birthday suit. His pops just laughed it off, dropping his usual promise about striking it rich and buying them a massive mansion where Sora and his brother Riku could finally have their own spaces. Sora immediately called out the cap, reminding him he'd been peddling that same lie for 5 solid years. His dad shrugged, admitting things were totally looking up anyway since Riku enlisted in the military. Nodding, the teenager acknowledged it had been 3 years since his older brother shipped out secretly, hyping himself up to follow in those exact same footsteps. Once he enlisted, he'd have to kiss this chaotic but cozy family dynamic goodbye. He'd be leaving behind a goofy dad who couldn't be trusted to do the dishes, and a fiercely strict mom who secretly had the biggest heart in the world. Deep down, Sora cherished his chaotic fam. If the universe could just freeze time right here, life would be absolute perfection. He always possessed this gut feeling that his suburban peace wouldn't last forever, but he completely failed to predict a massive, ominous tower literally crashing into their reality. At 15, our boy was clueless about how severely this monstrous structure was about to rewrite the entire history of the human race. One thing clicked instantly, though. This obelisk was straight out of his recurring nightmares. Riku had frantically called, ordering them to obey the emergency broadcasts and promising to rush home. Sora agreed, his voice trembling through the receiver. That exact phone call became the absolute last time they ever heard from Riku. Panic hit the airwaves with anchors swearing up and down that locking your doors would keep you 100% safe. Obviously, that was a lie. The TV channels quickly flatlined, leaving only a creepy looping radio message ordering all civilians to instantly sprint to the nearest underground bunker. Refusing to lose hope, his mom frantically scribbled a survival note for Riku before they hauled their bags out the door. The streets outside were screaming pure apocalypse. Every military convoy roaring past was packed with heavily armed troops, looking absolutely traumatized. Armored trucks rolled by, covered in terrifyingly massive claw gouges, trailing a stomach-churning stench of rotting meat right behind them. Staring at the carnage, his dad muttered under his breath, begging to know what the hell was destroying the world. When they finally hit the emergency camp, it was practically bursting with terrified survivors. Despite being shoulder to shoulder, the room was dead silent. It literally felt like a massive waiting room for the Grim Reaper. His mom grabbed his sleeve, whispering his name, and Sora quickly shadowed her through the miserable crowd. Of course, even during the end of the world, there's always that one toxic main character desperate for attention. A massive bully aggressively snatched a little kid's wrist, loudly accusing the toddler of jacking his food. Trembling, the kid pleaded his innocence, pointing out that rations were strictly 1 roll per person, meaning this grown man had definitely just inhaled his own stash. The scumbag responded by ruthlessly punting the kid right in the gut. The entire room just watched in horror, collectively paralyzed and refusing to step in. Chuckling like a total psychopath, the dude claimed his stomach was still rumbling, so he was permanently confiscating the snack, basically declaring the argument over. He aggressively snatched the roll, scoffing that they were only stuck here for a couple of days, so the brat wasn't going to starve to death anyway. Suddenly, Sora's dad clamped a heavy hand on the thug's shoulder, dropping a cold question about why he was acting like trash during a literal apocalypse. The punk instantly sneered, telling the old man to back the hell off. Instead of backing down, his dad cranked up the volume, demanding he return the stolen rations. Seeing red, the delinquent threw a wild haymaker, screaming at him to shut his mouth. Dodging effortlessly, Sora's pops instantly countered with a brutal kick, dropping the punk flat on his spine. He scooped up the crushed bun and gently returned it to the crying kid. When the punk scrambled to his feet, he was met with the most menacing death glare imaginable. Swiping a streak of blood off his chin, the thug furiously spat on the concrete, vowing that he'd make them pay for the humiliation. Sora nervously checked on his dad, but the older man just brushed it off, swearing he'd keep a close watch on the creeping psycho. That terrifying face burned itself permanently into Sora's brain. That absolute piece of trash was Eiji Kagawa, the sadist who was about to make Sora's life a living hell. Another miserable day of getting trashed at school gets completely derailed when an armed guard kicks the door open. Barking out an emergency order, he commands everyone to ditch the shelter through the rear exit and scramble into the transport trucks. A guy in a suit immediately demands answers, but the soldier just grimaces, claiming the intel is strictly classified. Not backing down, the suit explodes, screaming about being locked in their houses for 2 straight days. And now they are being herded like cattle, with zero explanation, yelling about where his tax dollars are actually going. A deafening crash silences the room. The soldier goes pale, screaming that they are here, and everyone needs to sprint for their lives. Panic setting in, Sora grabs his parents, urging them to move. His gut is screaming that something horrible is about to drop. Throwing his weight against the entrance, the guard admits his strength is failing, and orders the crowd to board those vehicles immediately. Wood splinters everywhere as massive weapon-wielding beasts smash through the barricade. Literal orcs. Staring through the shattered glass, Sora questions if the entire world has lost its mind. He bolts, crying out for anyone to save them. With walking nightmares chasing them, his folks shove him forward, merging into the terrified mob rushing the transports. Seeing the vehicles maxing out, our boy insists his parents board first, physically boosting them into the crowded bed. His dad desperately grips his hand, but the panicked survivors shove Sora back, screaming that there is zero space left for him. Muttering curses, he assures them he will just grab the next ride. But one glance confirms the neighboring rig is totally packed. Every single truck is bursting at the seams. Sprinting to the absolute last one, he finds it completely empty and scrambles to pull himself up. AJ reaches down to hoist him up. Sora sighs in relief, thanking him, but AJ just flashes a twisted smirk and echoes the gratitude right back. The weird vibe instantly throws our main character off. AJ cruelly explains that he is actually the grateful one, since Sora is about to die instead of his own dad. Calling him utter garbage, AJ sends him plummeting into the stampede. Getting crushed underfoot, Sora refuses to accept this hellish end just yet. He pleads for a miracle, right as a spectral figure materializes in the chaos. The Phantom calls out to the battered teen. Sora instantly recognizes the old guy from his recurring nightmares. The spirit promises to wait for him at the edge of the abyss, and then, he jolts awake in a completely foreign landscape. Disoriented, he questions if he was hallucinating and where on earth he just spawned. A crude weapon suddenly swings into his peripheral vision, violently cracking against his skull. A frenzied goblin is going all out to end him. Stumbling to his feet, his mind spirals. Where are his parents? Why is he totally alone? Did he actually die and drop straight into the underworld? A brutal strike to the face snaps him back to reality. Spitting blood, he wonders why this ugly freak will not just back off. Desperate to figure out this insane situation, Sora sprints away from the creature. His brain flashes to that massive tower materializing. Out of thin air, the two-faced snake who tossed him from the transport, the cryptic phantom, and now this little green menace hunting him. He is absolutely done playing the victim. His eyes glow a vivid purple as he roars for them all to burn, charging headfirst at his attacker. Snuffing out the goblin, he catches his breath, realizing he actually survived. Examining the corpse, he notes how crazy much it resembles a video game mob. Hovering near its chest is some weird black typography, almost like a level marker. Without warning, the ground starts violently trembling. A glowing gem rips itself from the monster's core. Sora watches in disbelief as the stone just floats silently in midair. It shoots directly at him, plunging straight into his chest. Instantly, every single cut and bruise vanishes like magic. Beyond the insane healing factor, raw power surges through his veins. The realization hits him he can literally grind levels here by securing kills. Figuring this cramped island might be crawling with more threats, he decides to scout the area before anything else can jump him. Pacing the entire perimeter yields absolutely nothing. No mobs, no hidden trails. Meaning if he actually wants to escape, there is only one crazy path forward. Spotting architecture suspended high above, he steels himself and steps onto a staircase made of floating rocks. Surmising he is trapped in some clouded sky zone, the vibe feels incredibly ominous. Any gamer knows the drill. Sky biomes are notorious for housing high-tier enemies. Sure, a digital character would just respawn after a fatal plunge, but he is definitely not willing to test out his extra lives here. Reaching the peak where the path cuts off, he enters a dark cavern just as a torch ignites on its own. The flame illuminates a massive drop leading straight to a mysterious gateway. Gripping his newly acquired axe tight, he cautiously approaches the ledge. Strange glyphs cover the entrance, and though they are completely alien, his brain somehow decodes them instantly. It demands fragments from specific targets. Snagging every single piece is his only ticket out of this abyssal nightmare. The objective clicks into place. He needs to farm those drops to escape. A sudden wave of confidence hits him honestly. That first mob was kind of a pushover anyway. Determined to beat the odds and break free, he shoves the heavy dungeon doors open. Layer 1 spans a massive 900 meters, matching the exact number branded on that first target. Layer 2 scales up twice as large, holding a beast stamped with a 2. And the third zone triples in size, where one of 4 specific monsters rocks the number 3. The hunt for the fragments is on. These glowing keys were exclusively looted off numbered bosses, serving as the absolute only way to level up. Naturally, a higher digit meant you were facing an absolute nightmare of a monster. But the real headache, actually tracking down these ultra-rare drops. Every single time he cleared a floor, the map doubled in scale, swarming with even more mobs, though his own stats were skyrocketing to match. Sora absolutely pulverized a beast as he tore through the levels, noticing the enemy types getting wildly unpredictable. Hitting floor 12, he recognized the exact same freakish species that previously raided his shelter, except now, they were basically cannon fodder to him. The sheer volume of enemies was causing major sensory overload. By the time he breached Layer 21, he was staring down 1,000,000 targets. Hitting Layer 30 meant wading through an ocean of 500 million beasts. Tracking down the boss keys felt literally impossible. Half these elite targets were heavily guarded by massive boss squads, while the rest cowered inside deep caverns. Honestly, the most tilting part was just how insanely long it took to clear them out. Yet he relentlessly slaughtered his way through the horde. He just kept pushing deeper, kicking down the next abyssal gateway. Now standing on Layer 42, Sora faced a mind-bending 2 trillion monsters. The entire horde roared, thirsting for his blood. Sora just screamed back, absolutely hyped. He went on an endless rampage, tearing through the swarm without a single break. He genuinely had zero clue what year it was anymore, because time literally didn't exist down here. It was just a brutal loop of surviving and slaughtering. Catching movement from his peripheral vision, Sora decided that totally obliterating these freaks was the ultimate disrespect. He lunged forward, literally ripping a creature cleanly in half. Gripping its severed head in one palm, Sora just stared at the steaming, freshly ripped spinal cord dangling from his other hand. He vaguely wondered what his body count was at this point, but decided to do the math later, tossing the gory trophy into the dirt. He started wondering if the floor boss was ever going to show up. Out of nowhere, the cavern wall violently exploded, revealing a massive mutated insect. Sora smirked, calling out the flashy entrance. Hoping this bug held the drop he needed, he dug his heels into the cratered earth, launching himself directly at the creature's skull. It genuinely didn't matter how hyped up these bosses were, the outcome never changed. Even the most arrogant, seemingly invincible titans got completely one-shotted. Sora instantly brushed off the victory, realizing his god-tier power was making things boring. He looked around incredibly frustrated about the missing Layer 42 key that was way overdue. He roared out in pure frustration. Flashback to that fateful year, when 20 massive structures abruptly spawned across the globe. Before society could even process the anomaly, swarms of nightmarish creatures flooded out, bringing humanity right to the brink of extinction. Casualties were astronomical. History dubbed it Judgment Day. But amidst the slaughter, a handful of survivors triggered an awakening, unlocking a bizarre holographic interface. These awakened individuals obtained godlike abilities. They essentially rebooted civilization, establishing elite hunter factions. Snapping back to the present abyss, Sora was sprinting after a stray creature, demanding the system reveal its stats. Suddenly, mystical chains bound the beast out of nowhere. Ghostly voices echoed, screaming that some girl just popped a summoning scroll and needed to be stopped. Sora froze, realizing those were actual human voices. Was this a portal out? A massive grin wiped across his face at the prospect of escaping. He immediately dive-bombed the trapped monster. The abyssal interface desperately flashed red warnings, stating the portal absolutely could not handle more than 2 biological entities. Sora mentally declared that nobody was stopping his extraction. Glaring directly at the system prompt, he readied his strike. Meanwhile, back on Earth, just outside Sector S, a girl was sprinting for her life, desperately trying to shake her pursuers. Meet Yuzono Aika, currently capped at level 19. Suddenly, her foot caught a thick root, sending her crashing hard into the dirt. Total disaster. A female spellcaster groaned about the chase. The towering brute next to her ordered Aika to surrender the loot, mocking that a level 60 scroll was way above a noob's pay grade. Shosei Toshiba threatened to get violently creative if she didn't comply. Aika begged for her life frantically, reminding them that player killing was strictly banned and they were risking major guild penalties. Shosei Toshiba, a level 38 barbarian, just laughed in her face. He coldly stated that he was the law out here. He offered a twisted deal, hand over the item, and maybe she gets to walk away with all her limbs. Trapped, she glared back, warning him that pushing her was a fatal mistake. Panicking, Aika screamed that they left her no choice, and instantly triggered the forced summon. 𝚤𝚉 just trash-talked her, his eyes totally dead, as he charged up a heavy strike demanding the item one last time. Suddenly, his massive blade froze mid-swing. A glowing magic circle erupted beneath them. Aika smirked, declaring that if she was going down, she was absolutely dragging them to hell with her. 𝚤𝚉 realized she was forcing a chaotic pull and cursed her out. Aika fired back, that literally nobody could tame an elite beast pulled through a corrupted rift. The barbarian frantically screamed for his squad to interrupt her. Aika just shrieked, wishing them all a painful death. Instantly, a massive shockwave of pure energy blasted the aggressive hunters backward. 𝚤𝚉 panicked, feeling the suffocating pressure, realizing they were in serious trouble. A terrifying aura saturated the battlefield. The ambushers braced themselves, thinking a raid boss had arrived, only to stare blankly at a pathetic level 3 Cerberus. The tension instantly evaporated as they burst into hysterical laughter, mocking her ultimate trump card. She put her literal life on the line to guard that scroll, leaving everyone totally on edge about what kind of nightmare creature she was about to pull out. Out of nowhere, a single arm punched straight through the Cerberus. Sora ripped the beast to shreds like it was wet paper, leaving the whole squad utterly speechless. Was this dude some high-tier humanoid boss? The girl tried to get his attention, but he was completely zoned out, just muttering to himself that he was finally free. Bro straight up yelled that he made it out of that absolute nightmare. His manic laughter echoed through the area, carrying such an insane dark aura that 𝚤𝚉 felt his blood literally turn to ice. Aiko stood there frozen, trying to process who this absolute menace was. Suddenly, the laughter cut off, and his gaze locked onto her before he closed the distance in the blink of an eye. Flashing a wildly unhinged grin, he demanded to know if this was actually Earth. When she nodded, you could see the realization hit him. He was finally on home turf. He casually asked if she was at some cosplay convention. Taking that disrespect personally, 𝚤𝚉 rushed him, screaming at the top of his lungs not to mess with the Tiger's War Guild. The dude threw everything he had, but it didn't even leave a scratch. Sora just shot him a death glare, making 𝚤𝚉 realize he wasn't fighting a man, he was facing an absolute monster. Sora's trauma flared up, hallucinating the guy as a literal orc. He hoisted him up by the throat aggressively, demanding to see his identification number, leaving a gasping 𝚤𝚉 completely clueless. Snapping back to reality, our boy dropped the dude. 𝚤𝚉 hit the dirt, trembling, having actually soiled himself out of pure terror. His crew scrambled to pick their humiliated boss up off the floor. Sora coldly ordered them to scram, while a retreating 𝚤𝚉 yelled some classic villain threats about getting his revenge. Staring at his brutal battle scars, the girl could not wrap her head around his completely broken stats. There was absolutely no way this guy was just another random mob, pulled from the abyss by her magical scroll. Snapping her out of her thoughts, Sora demanded to know exactly how much time had passed since those mysterious towers dropped. When she told him it had been 5 long years, it completely tripped him out. He still could not fathom if he was actually back in reality or why she looked like an RPG character. She quickly broke down how an awakening system had integrated with humanity. Sora felt a heavy pit in his stomach, had his home really flipped upside down, while he was rotting away in that void. Then she dropped the bombshell. City S just got absolutely leveled by the 7th massive monster wave. That hit way too close to home. That was his childhood turf. Desperate, he pushed for details on his hometown, only to hear it was nothing but rubble now. She tried to assure him that elite units were deployed to the front line, so the threat should be under control. Ignoring everything else, Sora asked for a single direction. The second she pointed a shaky finger toward the horizon, our guy straight up teleported out of there. Leaving her utterly confused, she realized she needed to brief her older sister immediately about this insane wildcard entering the board. Cut back to 𝚤𝚉's pathetic squad licking their wounds in the streets, totally unaware that a deeply unsettling figure was silently blocking their path. Before they could even ask who this stalker was, the hooded stranger claimed they reeked of his scent. The ultimatum was clear: spill his exact location in 5 seconds or else. Panic set in hard. Trying to act tough, 𝚤𝚉 started running his mouth, demanding to know what kind of sick prank this weirdo was pulling. Time was up. In one flawless, blinding motion, the stranger sliced the entire squad completely in half. Just like that, the whole crew was instantly deleted. Meanwhile, deep inside the heavily fortified headquarters of the Tiger's Roar Guild, the atmosphere was insanely tense. A desk worker delivered the grim news that Tashio's entire unit had flatlined while Sonozaki and the ultra-rare scroll had completely ghosted them. Her boss scoffed, calling his own fallen men absolute garbage. Furious, they got outplayed by a pathetic level 19 magic user, but Ryuichi Mukai, their ridiculously overpowered level 118 storm priest, wasn't having it. He inspected the data and realized his men were wiped out in a single devastating strike. He swore to hunt down the executioner, and his second-in-command fully backed the play. Riichi barked out orders to track down Sonozaki and drag her in for an interrogation. Nobody disrespects his guild without paying the ultimate price. Right at that moment, a violent gust of wind ripped past him. It was Sora. Riichi instantly choked on the overwhelming stench of fresh carnage, completely stunned by this phantom. That blur was heading straight for a highly lethal dead zone. Realizing this monster wave was a totally different breed, Riichi knew some heavy hitters were moving in the shadows. The monolithic tower that had been asleep for 5 straight years was officially waking up. Sensing a bloodbath, he immediately radioed every search squad to fall back. It was a code red situation. Back to our boy Sora was parkouring across the broken landscape like a missile, refusing to slow down, until he breached the quarantined borders of his city. Looking around, it finally clicked. While he was fighting for survival in the dark depths, his hometown had literally morphed into an apocalyptic wasteland. He flashed back to his early days in the void. He was hopelessly weak. To survive, he had to shut off his emotions, grinding until he was completely numb. He nearly lost his humanity entirely, but the clinging hope of seeing his family again was his only anchor. Those terrifying creatures that used to give him nightmares. Now, they were just pathetic stepping stones. Staring at the wreckage, he sent up a silent prayer that his parents and brother made it out alive. The vibrant, bustling streets, he remembered, were totally reduced to dust and concrete. Entire skyscrapers were snapped in half like twigs from some cataclysmic force. Yet strangely, there were no casualties scattered around, proving a successful mass evacuation had taken place. This was officially a ghost town. Finding his old apartment, he literally tore the door off its hinges, quietly whispering that he was finally back. The inside was completely trashed. Deep down, he knew his family wouldn't be chilling in a war zone, but he just had to see it with his own eyes. This place held every good memory he had left. Walking through the debris, something caught his eye on the kitchen table. It was a handwritten note from his parents. The letter revealed that the government had officially declared him dead, but his folks flat out rejected that lie. They packed up his room but left his essentials behind, keeping the ultimate faith that he'd return. They even went out and bought fresh clothes in larger sizes, neatly stacking them up so he'd have gear that actually fit his new build. They left a marked map, directing him to Safe Zone 6, begging him to track them down. They promised they would never stop waiting for their son. Signed, Mom and Dad. Tears finally broke through his hardened exterior as he gripped the paper. Questioning his own massive power limits, he grabbed a tactical blade, chopped off his ragged hair, and made a silent vow. If his stats were high enough to wipe out this entire apocalypse, he was going to take his damn life back. He locked eyes with his new reflection. The hunt was on. Sora locks his sights on Shelter 6. The holographic map points dead east, but the streets ahead are completely wiped off the grid. No road, no problem. He carves his own savage route, parkouring across the shattered rooftops at breakneck speed. A random mutated freak tries to ambush him mid-air, but Sora obliterates the thing with a casual flick, not even breaking his stride. Miles away, a couple of hammered guards complain about their dead-end shift. That is until a dark blur streaks across the night sky. They rub their eyes utterly clueless before a younger rookie runs up with a camera. He actually caught the glitch on video. It was a human. Meanwhile, deep in the neon-lit slums, a terrified girl backs into a grimy alleyway, begging her attackers to back off. She cries out that she was just scavenging for scraps. But these shady hunters just sneer, drooling over fresh meat like hungry wolves. Their leader AJ licks his lips like a total creep. He flashes a twisted smirk, promising they are absolute gentlemen who want to show her a good time. Tears stream down her face as she desperately pleads. AJ closes the distance, whispering sick promises about being gentle. He claims it would be a tragic waste to let her go. Suddenly, Sora drops into the alley. He sighs, calling them pathetic garbage, realizing some scumbags never change. AJ snaps his head back, barking at the intruder to scramble if he wants to keep his teeth. He immediately sicks his goons on the boy. 2 thugs lunge forward, screaming death threats. Sora barely flinches. He casually backhands both of them, instantly snapping their necks with 0 effort. A heavy blade swings straight for his head, but Sora catches the attacker's wrist and shatters bone like glass. AJ starts sweating, demanding to know who this monster is. He aggressively flexes his Tiger's Roar guild badge, threatening absolute war if Sora lays a finger on him. Sora just tilts his head and drops AJ's full name. He asks if the scumbag seriously forgot the kid he murdered. AJ freezes in his tracks. His eyes widen in pure horror as he stammers out Sora's name, refusing to believe the impossible. The overpowered protagonist just stares him down. AJ stumbles back, demanding to know how a corpse is breathing. Sora lets out a dark, chilling chuckle. In a fraction of a second, Sora vanishes and reappears, snatching AJ by the throat. He whispers that he literally crawled back from hell, just to return the favor. The bully chokes his vision, fading to black. Sora violently chokeslams him into the concrete, announcing that it is time for a one-way trip to the underworld. He vows to utterly destroy every ounce of the man's pride. Intoxicating power courses through Sora's veins, while dark voices scream in his mind to finish the job. They tell him he is a god among insects, free to do whatever he pleases. This absolute trash had made his previous life a waking nightmare. The agonizing torture, the endless humiliation, the suffocating despair. Today he finally cashes in that brutal karma. But then Sora remembers AJ's sick motive, crushing others purely for a sick thrill. Snapping back to reality, Sora drops him in disgust. AJ gasps for air on the pavement, coughing up a lung. Sora realizes he cannot stoop to a monster's level, yet the memory of his murder burns bright. Letting this psycho walk away means more innocent people die. Stealing his icy resolve, he locks eyes with Kagawa again. He lays down the ultimate law. Since the assassination attempt failed, AJ gets to live, but walking away 𝚏𝚘𝚘𝚘 free, not a chance in hell. The terrified thug trembles, asking what comes next. Sora coldly calculates the debt, 2 brutal years of relentless bullying. That earns him exactly 1 punch. Preying on helpless civilians, that is strike 2. And throwing him off a moving truck to die in the wasteland, that demands a heavy double tap. Survive 4 hits, and their bloody tab is cleared. AJ bursts into pathetic tears, screaming that a single blow would literally splatter his brains across the alley. Sora deadpans, telling him to chill out, and ruthlessly grabs him by the blood-stained collar. He pulls back his fist, promising a light tap. A sickening crunch echoes as Sora follows through, casually calling out the second strike. Crimson paints the concrete floor. Boom. Strike 3 connects with devastating force. Sora coldly orders the broken mess to stand back up, but AJ just sobs uncontrollably, begging for the sweet release of death. The ruthless hero simply plants his heavy boot on his skull, grinding his face into the dirt. The tormentor finally completely blacks out. Sora scans the gruesome wreckage, shattered limbs, and completely crushed vision. He considers the score permanently settled. He glares at the trembling lackeys, ordering them to haul this garbage to the ER and stay out of his zip code forever. Taking off into the night sky, Sora dusts off his hands. The trash is taken out. Now it is time to head back to his real home in the CDS safe zone. Cut to a heavily fortified military camp, where tired grunts complain they would trade their souls for a cushy wall guard assignment, just to avoid frontline beasts. A blonde-haired officer smirks, warning them not to wet their pants and tumble off the edge if a boss suddenly spawns. He aggressively orders them to stay frosty. Threat levels can spike at any second. This is First Lieutenant Tanji Kagura, clocking in at level 31. Private Shoki brushes it off, arrogant about their impenetrable haven. He proudly claims monsters would never dare breach their perimeter. Cue the absolute irony. Out of nowhere, the massive barricades violently shatter. A towering level 45 Kraken spawn crashes the party. The panicked squad immediately empties their assault rifles into the beast, but the bullets just piss it off. Pure terror sets in. A rookie screams that their standard-issue guns are doing 0 damage against a creature ranked that insanely high. The armored titan rears back for a devastating strike. Tanji shrieks for everyone to scatter, but the monstrous Kraken violently crushes the ground beneath them. It literally snaps, screaming soldiers in half like dry twigs. A blood-soaked survivor cries out for his fallen buddy 𝚛𝚘𝚘, cursing the freakish octopus to burn in hell. Blinded by grief, he vows to butcher the thing himself. Absolute chaos erupts across the bloody battlefield. Suddenly, a mysterious guy steps into the carnage, holding a strange box. The desperate platoon unleashes a storm of lead, but then the gunfire abruptly trails off. The monstrous Kraken has completely frozen its terrifying gaze, locked dead on the sky above. The entire squad freezes in sheer disbelief. Tanji squints, wondering if the beast actually just spooked itself, right as the colossal freak tightly retracts its slimy appendages into a defensive sphere. Staring dead into the clouds, the creature leaves itself wide open, prompting a nearby grunt to yell that whatever terrified the beast just handed them the ultimate opening. Chucking a payload of heavy explosives, he screams at the freak to burn instantly, triggering a blinding inferno that swallows the squid whole. While the platoon prays they actually vaporized it. But as the smoke clears, the monstrosity sits perfectly coiled, totally unfazed, and glaring back without a single dent, causing the trooper to lose his mind, screaming that this makes 0 sense. A jagged pincer snaps straight for the guy's throat, but out of nowhere, Sora drops from the sky and violently crushes the beast's skull directly into the pavement, leaving the entire squad absolutely, totally stunned. Piecing it all together, Tanji realizes the creature was actually trembling because of the absolute unit standing on its corpse, a dude who just one-tapped a boss that literally tanked a literal carpet bomb. Raw destructive energy on an S-rank scale like that is practically mythical, and Tanji swears he has never laid eyes on this overpowered anomaly in his entire life. Desperate for answers, he blindly triggers his appraisal ability only to get slammed by a massive error screen that completely shatters his expectations. The UI utterly blanks out his stats, flashing a terrifying system warning, demanding he show respect to a superior being, right before his consciousness violently snaps and he collapses. Panic erupts as the troops scramble to check on their knocked-out lieutenant, but Sora just casually glances over his shoulder, calmly mentioning he needs a quick favor. The overpowered stranger casually asks for the exact distance to safe zone number 6, prompting a shaky grunt to reply that it sits exactly 50 kilometers straight up north. The catch: anyone heading that way has to navigate straight through the notorious Sector X, instantly sparking our hero's curiosity about this mysterious designated zone. The jittery survivor explains it functions as a massive quarantine bubble, purposely drawing the horde's aggro into one spot to prevent total citywide annihilation. The crew casually mentions the place is overflowing with premium loot drops, making Sora internally geek out over the fact that slicing up real-world beasts actually yields RPG-style rewards. Pressing for stats, he asks where the squid ranked on the danger scale, and the trooper nervously admits that hitting level 45 makes a beast an absolute nightmare. Shocked that a measly mid-tier mob caused this much panic, Sora casually questions the horde's high-level count, getting a sketchy estimate of roughly 100 elites roaming the battlefield. The grunt mutters that if anything stronger showed up, the human race would already be completely wiped off the map, prompting a chill nod of appreciation from our protagonist. Left utterly jaw-dropped by his insane aura, the soldier frantically screams out, nervously admitting that what he is about to ask borders on absolute insanity. He practically begs the living weapon to dive directly into Sector X, swearing that a god-tier hunter like him could single-handedly prevent a massive bloodbath. Shrugging off the heavy stakes, Sora simply points out that slicing through that infected zone is the quickest route to Safe Zone 6, catching a desperate nod of confirmation. Locking in his decision, our main guy gives a thumbs up, and when the baffled troop asks if he is seriously committing to the suicide mission, Sora drops the coldest one-liner. He casually promises to utterly dismantle whatever pathetic creature is unlucky enough to breathe in his general direction. Cutting back to the heavily fortified frontline base, an exhausted commander lets out a heavy breath just as a medic notices 𝚙𝚘𝚘𝚘, jolting violently awake immediately, demanding his total blackout time. The medic assures him he was only out cold for 10 solid minutes, entirely saved by a clutch instant heal potion looted straight off a fresh carcass. Ignoring his own vitals, 𝚙𝚘𝚘𝚘 frantically demands the exact location of the godlike dude who bailed them out, totally freezing up when the private points straight towards the northern border. Grabbing the kid's collar, the lieutenant demands a stutter-free replay, listening in sheer horror as the grunt explains the anomaly marched off toward bunker number 6. Eyes practically bulging out of his skull, 𝚙𝚘𝚘𝚘 asks if the guy stepped straight into Sector X, getting a grim confirmation that the absolute madman strolled into the death trap without flinching. Barking like a mad dog, 𝚙𝚘𝚘𝚘 screams for a direct hotline to HQ, instantly leaving the rookie stammering, while the lieutenant violently calculates he has a brutally tight 10-minute window. Sweating bullets, he prays he can intercept the literal ticking clock heavily, breathing as the comms officer confirms he blasted an absolute priority SOS straight up the chain. The confused subordinate begs for context on dragging the highest brass into this, forcing 𝚙𝚘𝚘𝚘 to spit out that today's playbook is radically different from any standard raid. Spilling highly classified military secrets, he reveals the grunt squads were purposely kept strictly in the dark, especially regarding the true terrifying nature of Sector X. That sector wasn't meant to trap the horde, it was heavily rigged as an absolute glassing zone for heavy bombers, precisely as the chaotic call finally connects to the megabase. An elite desk jockey flags a red alert ping from grid B22, catching the attention of Renji Kumagaya, a ridiculously toxic level 58 pyromancer, who casually orders the line opened. Smashing her holographic keys, the assistant patches it through, letting 𝚙𝚘𝚘𝚘 violently rattle off his clearance code BW3422 before gasping out his critical update. He heavily stresses that an unidentified god-tier rogue just wandered blindly into the active airstrike grid, causing Renji to roll his eyes and scoff at why he should even care. The arrogant superior asks if the lieutenant seriously crashed the comms, just to confess a rookie screw-up, forcing 𝚙𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘 to gulp down his raging anxiety and shoot back a hard negative. Pleading for a massive loudspeaker alert to warn the rogue, 𝚙𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘 heavily insists that letting a literal powerhouse evaporate in friendly fire is a totally unforgivable waste of an asset. Annoyed by the hype, the fire mage demands hard data on this so-called powerhouse's combat level, causing 𝚙𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘 to choke up and admit he has absolutely zero clue. Pinching the bridge of his nose, the arrogant boss slowly mocks the situation, summarizing that some completely unranked random shattered protocol to play hero in a literal blast radius. And for this nobody, they are begging to pause a multi-million-dollar strike, while his female co-commander coldly notes the idiot will likely be a pile of ash before the mic even turns on. Renji bursts into nasty laughter, roasting 𝚙𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘 for being completely brain-dead but insanely hilarious, insulting the frontline scrubs for needing constant babysitting instead of manning up. Flexing his heavy authority, he threatens that, while he rarely micromanages, flagging a delay to the megabosses over some stray dog will severely sabotage his own spotless record. He absolutely refuses to take the fall for this clown show. While the wildly overpowered level 73 powerhouse leaning next to him, Mitsuno Saki silently judges the whole vibe. Internally rolling her eyes, she questions how this toxic loser can openly sabotage his own men while they face a brutal bloodbath, completely writing him off as a massive narcissistic joke. Yet through the heavy static, she finds herself genuinely fascinated that the meticulously trained Kagura is throwing his entire career away just to bail out a total nameless phantom. Was he really worth scrapping the entire mission? That question burned in her mind as she thought about his insane power. Sweat drips down Tanji's face as he waits for the radio to crackle to life. Mei silently weighs their options for a beat. She signals Lieutenant Kagura, assuming he isn't trying to sabotage them or derail their strategy. But he better have a bulletproof excuse ready to go. Otherwise, she'll drag him straight to a court-martial herself. Tanji flinches, stammering out a panicked repeat of her threat. Mei shoots a look at Major Kumagaya, asking if that satisfies him. He just scoffs with pure disgust, demanding a damn good explanation. Tanji drops the bombshell. This mystery guy obliterated a level 45 baby kraken with zero effort. Just one hit. Mei absolutely freezes. Her jaw hits the floor. That kind of raw damage easily eclipses an A-rank hunter. Could the military be hiding a rogue S-rank? Renji shoots that theory down immediately. Every single S-rank is currently deployed, plus command hasn't picked up any friendly signals in Sector B-22. Frustrated, he demands to know why they don't just check his stats. A simple inspect skill should have revealed everything right. Tanji hesitates, stumbling over his words. He admits he tried, but the second he activated the skill, a massive wave of data fried his brain, knocking him out cold. That massive data overload proves the guy is rocking a level of at least 100. The entire room goes dead silent. Renji eventually clears his throat, admitting that kind of power is insane. But it still doesn't justify pulling the plug on a massive tactical strike. Nobuo Uwasa, an elite level 33 mage, backs him up. They can't just ditch their sworn duty over a wildcard they know absolutely nothing about. Thousands of troops from multiple divisions are already locked in position. They have enough firepower to completely secure the blast radius and the surrounding buffer zone. The strategy was foolproof. Drop the payloads, then let the garrison troops mop up whatever surviving beasts try to escape. But if they trigger an emergency broadcast, that siren would act like a dinner bell, pulling every monster straight toward the sound. The defensive lines would break instantly, leading to an absolute massacre of thousands of soldiers. Trading tens of thousands of lives to save one dude? Hell no. Even if he is a god-tier S-rank. Command refuses to gamble with those odds. Renji mutters an apology. Tanji stands there utterly crushed. Mei stays quiet for a moment before finally dropping the hammer. Request denied. They refuse to throw away a massive coordinated strike just to bail out a single hunter. The decision is set in stone. Click. The line goes dead. An oppressive silence falls over the squad as Tanji slowly drops the phone, looking completely defeated. A fellow private steps up trying to comfort the lieutenant by saying he did everything possible. But Tanji just grinds his teeth white, knuckling his fists in pure rage. He forces out that this is just the harsh reality of war, and the big picture is what actually matters. The private stares at his commanding officer, then zeroes in on the vehicle keys clipped to Tanji's belt. In a flash, he swipes them. Tanji barks at him, demanding to know what he's doing, and ordering him to stand down. The airstrike is dropping any minute, but the soldier refuses. He shouts that he still has 6 minutes on the clock, plenty of time. He sprints toward a Humvee. Renji loses it, screaming at Private First Class Shoki Matsura that he's begging for a court-martial. He barks the order to return to formation immediately, but the Humvee just burns rubber, tearing down the road. Another trooper asks if they should intercept him. Lieutenant Tanji just tugs the brim of his cap down, his voice heavy. He tells them to let him go. The kid made his choice and knew exactly what the consequences were. Gripping the steering wheel, Shoki prays he makes it in time. Little did this reckless private know the absolute unit he was racing to save was about to become humanity's greatest weapon, casually one-shotting elite beasts left and right. Inside the cab, Shoki curses under his breath, realizing he lost the trail. Where the heck did this guy vanish to? He took the most direct path and the clock was mercilessly ticking down to 4 minutes. The math doesn't add up. If Shoki can't spot him, the dude has to be moving way faster than the Humvee. Area X is looming right ahead. If he blasts the PA system, he might grab the hunter's attention, but he'll definitely agitate the horde. With the timer flashing under 2 minutes, Shoki clicks the megaphone on. To hell with stealth. He lets out a heavy breath into the mic, flooding the zone with deafening static. He mentally accepts that his career is officially ruined. Taking one last massive gulp of air, he stares at the dashboard and screams his lungs out. He yells that he's the rookie from earlier, begging the guy to retreat because the sky is about to rain literal fire. His desperate warning echoes across the ruins, and Sora catches every single word. Wait, an airstrike. Suddenly everything clicks into place. No wonder this place is a ghost town for hunters. Sora knows he can slice through these monsters like butter, but surviving ground zero of a carpet bombing, that's a whole different ballgame. Playing it safe is the only move here. That crazy private literally put his neck on the line, driving straight into the danger zone, just to give him a heads up. Sora refuses to let that kind of loyalty get rewarded with death. Meanwhile, Shoki sweats, bullets praying his message landed. In the final minute, every single mutant in the vicinity snaps its neck toward the Humvee. The ground shakes as the horde charges. Shoki realizes he just made himself public, enemy number one. Panic sets in. He cranks the steering wheel, screaming that he needs to bail right now. The engine roars as he floors it, watching the final seconds melt away, shrieking that he's completely trapped. Suddenly, a massive beast slumps over dead on arrival. Out of nowhere, Sora casually taps on the Humvee's window. Shoki nearly cries, shouting a massive thank God that he's still breathing. Sora just raises an eyebrow, asking for the details on this supposed airstrike, but Shoki's eyes widen in sheer terror. The countdown hits 1. He screams that time is completely up. High above the clouds, the bombers snap open their bay doors, dropping the devastating payloads. The whole city is straight up crumbling to dust. Massive boulders hurtle toward their ride, but Sora doesn't even blink. He flicks his wrist, ripping a giant slab of earth right out of the pavement. That makeshift shield rockets upward, smashing the incoming debris to pieces. Cut to command center, an aide patches through to the Major General, confirming the airstrike just wiped the grid. Renji isn't celebrating yet. He barks out orders. He wants a total body count on those beasts, and a real-time tracker on any stragglers. Thermal scans are totally dead, sir, the aide reports. A grunt nearby looks confused, wondering aloud where the hell the horde vanished to. Her voice drops as she breaks the news. They didn't run. They are sitting dead center in the blast radius, and the ones in the eye of the storm, completely untouched. Impossible, Renji snaps, slamming his fist down. He demands a live feed from the drones right this second. Fingers flying across the keyboard, the aide throws the aerial view onto the massive jumbotron. Gasps fill the room as they try to figure out if the freaks somehow manifested a force field. Then they spot it. Right in the epicenter, a cloaked dude is literally surfing on top of a gargantuan beast. Renji's eyes widen just as a monster lunges straight at the camera lens. The Leviathan screeches, sending shockwaves into the atmosphere. Static floods the monitor as a massive, scaly fist violently pulverizes the drone into scrap metal. Signal lost. We are completely blind out there, the aide yells over the chaos. Mei steps up, eyes locked on the dead screen. Intel said this horde would be built different, but that level of coordination is insane. They actually knew we were watching, she whispers. Nobuo's jaw clenches so hard it might snap. He starts screaming for an immediate full-scale evacuation of all troops from the garrison. Mei greenlights the total pullout, ordering the rearguard to fortify the perimeter walls. But the aide's voice shakes Mom. They aren't pushing toward the barricades. Dead silence hits the war room. Mei shoots her a fierce look, demanding their actual trajectory. They're making a beeline straight for Sector B-22, the aide stammers. It hits Mei like a freight train. That's exactly where their wildcard rogue hunter vanished to. She reroutes every single eye in the sky to Sector B-22 to see what kind of madman actually stalled a monster apocalypse. Back in the kill zone, the dust settles into an eerie, dead quiet. Shoki peeks out, shaking like a leaf, praying the airstrikes are over. Holy crap, he actually survived. He's practically doing a victory dance when Sora shatters his vibe. Keep your guard up, Sora mutters flatly. If we didn't turn to ash, neither did those freaks. And guess what? The whole swarm is zeroing in on their exact coordinates. Sora's instincts flare up. He shoves Shoki toward the dirt, sensing massive hostile energy closing in at breakneck speed. Shoki stumbles, asking if it's just friendly recon tech. No chance. Those beasts just swatted a military drone out of the sky, a tactical IQ they've literally never shown before. Sora glares at the horizon. Save the shock for later, he growls. Over the ridge, an absolute army of colossal titans breaches the skyline, staring right at them. He barks at Shoki to ditch the area like yesterday, but Shoki is frozen, staring upward with pure terror as his system displays the insane stats hovering over the horde. Are you kidding me? He panics. This is an elite death squad, and their boss is pushing past level 90. Worse, that hellfire bombardment didn't even singe their fur. Shoki's brain goes into full meltdown mode. They are absolutely cooked. But Sora just stretches his neck casually, pointing out that they didn't take any damage either. If heavy artillery can't put them down, I'll just beat them to a bloody pulp with my bare hands, he smirks. He orders Shoki to bunker down in the trashed off-roader, then blasts off like a rocket, literally parkouring up the Titans' bodies. He is slicing through the lower-tier mobs like butter. The level 90 raid boss swings a massive haymaker, but Sora catches the catastrophic blow dead in its tracks. With one single hand. Locking eyes with the behemoth, his gaze is ice cold. The beast tries to yank its arm back, but Sora uses its own momentum to rip it off balance before launching himself miles into the sky. The alpha beast instantly registers the lethal aura radiating from above. Sora dive bombs like a meteor, his fist connecting perfectly with the monstrosity's skull. The impact straight up vaporizes the Titan's head into bloody mist as the massive corpse crumples. Landing flawlessly on the remains, our boy locks sights with the shadowy cloaked boss. Sora narrows his eyes, admitting he couldn't even detect the guy's aura hiding up there. The hooded creep just smiles a twisted grin and whispers, "Found you at last." Grotesque, writhing tentacles slither out from beneath his dark robes, probing the dead Titan beneath them. He repeats himself, his voice dripping with sinister obsession. He dubs Sora the Seed of the Abyss, demanding the filthy thief hand over what was stolen. Sora just tilts his head, completely lost by the supervillain monologue. The freakish guy snarls, declaring that anyone who dares to hijack another being's sacred power is getting a one-way ticket to the afterlife. Without warning, razor-sharp appendages whip straight for Sora's throat. But our overpowered MC casually catches the lethal blades mid-air without breaking a sweat. "If that's your A-game, you aren't killing anyone today," Sora taunts. But suddenly, a massive shadow eclipses him from above. Another colossal beast pile-drives its palm right onto Sora, trying to crush him into the dirt. High above a military lens catches it all. The hooded psycho glances up, scoffing at the Odin's crow, spying on them. He instantly writes it off as pathetic human garbage. Down below, Sora effortlessly pries the giant hand off his body, calling up to the weirdo. "Hey, if you actually want me dead, you're gonna have to try a hell of a lot harder." He twirls his spear, lunging for the kill, but the villain's body warps into shadow and phases out of reality. Sora skids to a halt, scanning the empty air. The psycho's voice echoes from the void, gagging over the fact that absolute trash-tier humans dare to monitor him. He finds their pathetic tech absolutely revolting. He snaps his fingers toward the sky. Instantly, a Titan leaps up and drop-kicks the surveillance tech into oblivion. The villain then broadcasts a chilling command to his horde: eradicate every single eye in the sky. Miles away in a fortified bunker, a tech jockey curses as his monitor fuzzes to static. Still, he lets out a breath, figuring he at least got enough intel to close out the objective. He realizes the entire monster migration was thrown off course because of one absolute mad lad, a solo hunter squaring off against an apocalyptic wave by himself. He scrambles to radio command about this anomaly, but a deafening crash rocks the steel barricade behind him. The grunt dives for cover, screaming that his position is compromised right before his mic cuts out in an agonizing shriek. The cloaked psycho cackles like a maniac, unleashing his monstrous pets to slaughter anyone breathing. Sora's eyes darken his grip, tightening on his weapon with pure rage. He flashes back to Shoki's desperate words how a powerhouse like him could literally save humanity, and how the kid risked everything just to drop a warning. Nearby, Shoki panics, yelling that some kind of tech got wedged in their wreckage. Sora's jaw clenches so hard it could shatter glass. His aura explodes as he locks onto the villain, growling, "If you want to end a raid, you always decapitate the final boss first. Look, the math is simple. If you want to keep the body count at 0, you gotta speedrun these villains." The colossal beast violently swings its massive fist, but Sora effortlessly sidesteps the strike. He realizes instantly, ever since that creep fused with it, the Titan's damage output has completely skyrocketed. Tracing the dark energy radiating across the cracked pavement, Sora realizes this dude just refuses to stay down. What's actually tripping him up, though, is the freaky resemblance the villain looks practically identical to him. Out of absolutely nowhere, the imposter manifests a pitch-black blade. The sheer magical pressure radiating off the weapon instantly puts Sora on edge. That shadowy broadsword screamed bad news. Smirking, the villain declares it's his literal destiny to wipe out the Seed of the Abyss. He swings, but Sora flawlessly evades the lethal arc immediately, countering with a bone-rattling punch straight to the guy's forearm. In a flash, Sora completely disarms him, snatching the dark blade right out of his grip and immediately charging back in. The bad guy shoots him an absolutely venomous glare, but Sora's heavy swing just violently cleaves the concrete. Staring at the crater, he wonders if his strike got completely negated, and why this terrifying aura felt so weirdly nostalgic. It was basically a carbon copy of the Abyss's own energy. Warping back onto the giant creature's shoulder, the enemy scoffs, mocking Sora for relying on stolen loot. With a simple flick of his wrist, the dude completely blips out of existence. Sora's mind races, realizing this abyssal magic has way more broken mechanics than he originally thought. Realizing this boss fight is going to be a marathon, his top priority becomes evacuating the injured soldier. He casually asks Shoki if he's terrified of heights, to which the guy shakes his head. Suddenly, the wrecked military vehicle violently jolts upward, leaving Shoki completely stunned. Sora smirks, announcing their impromptu flight plan, while the villain instantly calls him a total clown. The imposter barks at him to stop disrespecting the absolute might of the Abyss. Condensing pure darkness into a massive floating orb, he delivers his villain monologue. Top tiers don't exist to babysit the weak, he sneers. They exist strictly to level up. He sentences Sora to bleed out right alongside this pathetic mortal. The projectile's velocity is completely insane. Sora knows running is pointless, it would hunt them down in seconds, so he decides to just shatter the thing head-on. Launching himself directly at the death ball, Sora pulls back his arm and delivers a devastating right hook. As the blast clears, he desperately hopes he actually shattered it. But his knuckles hit absolutely nothing. It was just a phantom decoy. The terrifying reality sets in the exact second. A blood-curdling scream echoes from right behind him. The true dark payload brutally rear-ends the floating car. Sora screams at 𝚤𝚘𝚘 to bail out instantly, but the terrified soldier begs him to stay back. A sinister, disembodied voice whispers to the pathetic lamb, telling him not to panic. Sora snaps his gaze downward, just as a barrage of shadowy spikes brutally impales the chassis. The creeping darkness promises to drag the soldier straight to the afterlife. Slamming his boot onto one of the lethal spikes, Sora calls out the absolute BS. Meanwhile, the imposter touches down right on the hood. Taunting Sora to chill out, the villain watches as our hero physically rips the shadow tendrils apart with his bare hands. The creeping entity mocks them, pointing out the soldier isn't quite a goner yet. The freaky dark magic instantly shifts aggro to Sora, actively trying to puppet 𝚤𝚘𝚘's half-dead body. The villain coldly remarks that helplessly watching your precious allies get completely slaughtered right in front of you is the tragic, beautiful fate of the abyssal seed. Sora doesn't even flinch, just hitting him with the most absolute death stare imaginable. His voice drops perfectly flat as he asks if this psycho gets a kick out of actively stomping on innocent people's dignity. The imposter just cackles like a maniac, effortlessly manipulating the dark tendrils. Why even ask the obvious, he sneers instantly, triggering a devastating ultimate attack, Obsidian Storm. A savage barrage of dark projectiles mercilessly shreds through Sora's clothes and flesh. Unbothered, Sora taunts the guy, asking if that weak combo is really his maximum output. The dark matter violently detonates right on top of him, but as the smoke clears, Sora is already winding up his fists. Spitting that literal trash like him makes him physically sick. Our boy explodes into motion. He viciously shatters the barricade of dark spikes with a single blow, rushing the villain down at blinding speeds. He reaches out and secures 𝚤𝚘𝚘's limp body in a flash, but the soldier's eyes are completely void of life. The parasite has him, forcing his puppeted limbs to violently pummel Sora with a ruthless combo. Tanking the hits, Sora's only thought is absolute guilt for dragging this random guy into his chaotic mess. Seizing the opening, the imposter teleports directly behind our hero. Spinning on a dime, Sora launches a fully charged counterattack. The villain just smirks, branding it completely useless, and calling Sora a literal noob. He roasts Sora for having zero clue how to actually wield abyssal magic, claiming a victory is mathematically impossible. That arrogant monologue gets violently cut short by a fist connecting straight with his jaw. The impact sends the villain flying across the battlefield, violently skidding across the concrete like a ragdoll. Sora calmly brushes himself off, telling the guy he never even stood a chance. Before he can follow up, the colossal beast stomps forward to act as a meat shield. Coughing up blood, the imposter is completely shell-shocked. He cannot comprehend how Sora actually managed to bypass his defenses. Newsflash, people actually level up. Sora mocks, instantly re-engaging the dash. Panicking, the villain mutters that things just got incredibly dicey and desperately scrambles back onto his titan's shoulder. He realizes with sheer horror that Sora legitimately copied his abyssal magic just by analyzing his attack patterns. Suddenly, losing visual, the imposter frantically scans the battlefield. He didn't look up. Sora materializes right in his blind spot fist, practically glowing with killing intent. The villain aggressively backflips away, forced to admit this kid is a total monster. Sora taunts that dodging is cute, but surviving this next move, not happening. With a devastating shockwave, he absolutely obliterates the summoned beast. The giant titan gets violently bisected right down the middle. But watching the severed fleshy halves magnetically snap back together, Sora realizes this dude is spamming that annoying regeneration hack. Time for a tactical swap, he locks onto the creature's true nucleus. Plunging his hands into a dense orb of dark matter, he violently rips it upward, commanding the core to just completely implode. The massive beast lets out a terrified shriek, refusing to accept getting one-shotted. Right on cue, the dawn breaks and scorching morning sunlight heavily bathes the ruins, violently evaporating the remaining abyssal corruption. Stripped of their dark aura, the giant abominations crumble into absolute dust. Sora locks eyes with the imposter, coldly promising he's literally next on the chopping block. Sweating, the villain hastily charges up a desperate monobomb. Swearing brutal revenge, the coward pops his ultimate escape tool. He activates his shadow unit instantly, swarming the zone with a massive horde of bloodthirsty mobs to cover his tracks. All that chaotic crimson energy aggressively funnels directly back into the imposter's core. Caught in the sudden blast radius, Sora is forced to cross his arms and completely brace for impact. The shockwave violently shreds what's left of his fit. Lowering his guard, Sora's jaw drops. The battlefield is totally empty. He can't believe this high-tier villain genuinely burned an ultimate skill, literally just to rage quit the lobby. Sighing over his absolutely ruined drip, he checks his pockets and lets out a massive breath of relief. The treasured photo of his parents didn't get a single scratch. Yanking open the mangled car door to check on Shoki, Sora softly mutters that this soldier definitely has people praying for his safe return too. Sora snatches the necklace off his chest, digging a makeshift grave for Shoki in the dirt. He vows to carry the fallen warrior's legacy with him. This wasn't the end of the shadow threat, not even close. The enemy had devoured way too many souls, making a surprise attack inevitable at any given second. The villain's sick promise echoes in Sora's mind. He would be forced to watch his loved ones perish right before his eyes. A twisted so-called beautiful destiny. Realizing he absolutely cannot let that monster reach the safe zone first, Sora launches himself forward. Racing against the clock, he completely abandons Area X. Meanwhile, military scout drones swarm the abandoned sector. May barks orders through the comms demanding a full sweep. She wants the perimeter locked down tight, not even a glitch in the matrix slips past their radar. Ground troops scale the rocky terrain. One scopes out the carnage, radioing the director to confirm the beasts are already rotting corpses. Staring intensely at the monitor, May acknowledges the report. Her gut twists, fully aware the massacre had gone down way before they arrived. She commands her squad to rip through the drone footage and flag every tiny detail. The cratered landscape screamed of an epic showdown, confirming Lieutenant Kagura's wild theory. An absolute unit of a hunter tanked the carpet bombing and single-handedly shredded the monster wave. Suddenly, a tech guy shouts out, waving a fully intact memory drive pulled from the wreckage. They immediately boot up the files. May leans in, piecing together the timeline involving Private First Class Matsura's final moments. He marched straight into the blast radius, meaning the dude standing beside him had to be the mystery powerhouse. Down in the dirt, the recon unit closes in on a corpse. A grunt spots glowing loot scattered in the dust, a premium stamina flask, a wicked ancient A-rank royal blade, and a glowing, mysterious golden cube. His buddy asks what he's staring at, prompting the first guy to nervously kick dirt over his jackpot. Nothing, he stammers. But his commanding officer isn't buying that garbage, sliding down the ridge to catch him red-handed. The boss demands to know if these epic tier drops fell from the boss monster. Pocketing squad loot is a straight-up felony, and the kid knows the drill. Sweating, the rookie stares at the shiny gear, asking how they're chopping up the profits. The superior smirks, telling him to chill, he only wants the cube. The rookie immediately shuts that down. Everyone knows a flashy box like that screams legendary artifact, but the veteran officer grips the kid's shoulder tight, warning him not to push his luck. Cornered and outranked, the kid surrenders the cube. As the rookie trudges away, the corrupt cop gloats over scoring a literal goldmine. Cut to evacuation shelter 6, Sora finally hits the gates. Glancing up at the massive barricades, he notes the absolute lack of battle damage. Survivors throw weird glares his way, mostly because the dude is strutting around totally shirtless. Expanding his senses, Sora realizes the shadow monster is nowhere close. Actually, there isn't a single heavy hitter in the vicinity. But without an alpha guarding the yard, this entire sanctuary is a sitting duck. Suddenly, a monk steps dead in his tracks. Sora squints, wondering if the old man is visually impaired. The monk points out Sora's insanely heavy aura, pegging him as a wanderer from the wasteland. Sora gives him a cool nod. Chuckling, the monk admits he's just relieved Sora isn't here to start a bloodbath, offering cash in exchange for some solid intel about the chaos brewing beyond the walls. Getting the scoop on the real world would be a massive jackpot for him. Glancing at the cash, Sora figures that's how the local economy works. He shrugs, promising to spill whatever tea he knows, and the monk nods along. But Sora cuts the small talk, needing to address the elephant in the room. A holy man tossing around. Terms like Your Excellency is clearly capping. The monk cracks a smile, admitting his cover is blown, and the robes are just for the aesthetic. Sora fires back, asking if blindfolding himself is just a fashion choice too. Groaning internally at this pesky kid, the man claims he caught a nasty eye infection. Yeah, right. Sora can literally feel an insane, predatory energy leaking from behind that cloth. The guy is definitely masking his true stats for a reason. Turns out there's a total beast playing dress-up in this safe zone. Flipping the script, Sora asks what the fake monk wants to know. The man leans in, desperate to hear about the apocalypse happening outside. Pointing at the heavy artillery lining the barricades, he knows the military is prepping for all-out war. The clueless civilians might be oblivious, but he felt the shockwaves from distant explosions and needs the rundown. Playing it cool, Sora claims ignorance, making up a story about running errands. When the southwest quadrant blew up, forcing him to run for his life, the monk smirks instantly, realizing the kid is smurfing his power levels too. Still, he hands over the cash, thanking him for the crumb of intel, which Sora casually brushes off. Walking away, our hero questions if this secret powerhouse operates solo. Tracking these invisible threats, he can't help but wonder how many hidden titans are actually lurking in the shadows. Plus, he needs to keep a low profile. It's wild that camp security lets a shady dude like that roam unchecked. Humanity's defense system is looking super sloppy, probably because everyone is focused on the mutant monsters. Sora ducks into an apparel shop, finally copping some fresh drip, using the fake monk's hush money. Dripped out, it was time to hunt down his missing parents. Sticking to the classics, he flashes a faded photograph to a random girl on the street, asking if she recognizes the couple. Instantly, the girl completely freaks out, stumbling backward and aggressively denying everything. Sora narrows his eyes. She looked like she just made eye contact with a ghost. He's scoping out the paranoid locals when some random street punk suddenly barks at him. Sora doesn't even flinch. He just lets his terrifying aura explode and demands to know what the guy's problem is. The punk stammers, pointing out that Sora screams out of towner and creeping people out by flashing a photograph at dead of night. Unbothered, Sora shoves the picture forward. You recognize them. The thug admits the whole block is talking about the weirdo with the photo, but he demands to know Sora's actual business with the couple. I'm their kid, Sora drops casually. The punk's eyes go wide. He stumbles back, sweating bullets, as he asks if Sora is that black-haired boy praying it's a sick joke. Before he can answer, a massive delivery truck totally loses control, barreling straight towards Sora's spine. But the second it makes contact, the entire metal cab crumples against his body like a cheap tin can. The street punk's jaw practically hits the pavement. Sora brushes off the wreckage like dust, apologizing and asking the guy to repeat the question. He totally tanked a multi-ton vehicle without a single scratch. Absolutely paralyzed by fear, the thug squeaks out a greeting, realizing it actually is the lost son after all these years. He frantically points down the block, desperately giving directions to the family estate. Sora throws him a quick nod of thanks and strolls off, leaving the punk wildly waving goodbye like his life depends on it. Once Sora is out of earshot, the guy sprints in the opposite direction, totally panicking. He has to warn the whole gang immediately. Meanwhile, Sora strolls down the pavement connecting the dots. A random street enforcer, knowing his parents' exact address, major red flag. Growing up, his folks were literally the sweetest people alive. And in this messed up world, toxic leeches always prey on the absolute kindest souls. But the era of them getting bullied is officially over. He's home. Stepping up to the final address, he scopes out the property line. A literal fortress of a mansion towers over him. He squints, guessing that the recent monster wave probably left a bunch of luxury real estate totally abandoned for his parents to claim. No big deal. He raps his knuckles against the heavy oak doors, only to hear a gruff, booming voice from inside, demanding to know if the day's hit is finished. The heavy door swings open. Sora freezes in his tracks. Standing right there is his once gentle dad, but now the guy is absolutely dripping in hardcore Yakuza mob boss energy. And the craziest part, the old man doesn't even recognize his own flesh and blood. Sora drops his name, desperately trying to jog his dad's memory. The Mafia Don looks utterly baffled. The heavy tension follows them as they slide into seats at the dining table. Suddenly, his mom breezes into the room, pouring tea and apologizing for making them wait. She shoots her husband a hopeful look, but the boss shakes his head utterly, refusing to buy this wild story. The absolute unit sitting across from him looks literally nothing like their scrawny lost boy. He crosses his arms, declaring it's time for the ultimate test. Sora raises an eyebrow, completely lost. A secret exchange, his dad growls low. He glances nervously at his wife, making it crystal clear that these dark truths are strictly off-limits for her ears. He turns back to Sora with a death glare, warning the kid that one wrong answer means he's leaving this mansion in a body bag. One slip-up and the shadow assassin strikes. Right on cue, a chilling voice echoes from the rafters, confirming the kill order. Sora smirks internally. His dad actually bagged himself a personal ninja. Paranoid, sure, but top-tier security means Sora doesn't have to play bodyguard 24/7. His dad demands his compliance. Sora just feels bad for the ceiling ninja, because bro is about to hear some highly classified cringe. Without missing a beat, Sora drops the bomb every single weekend. His macho dad attended basic cooking classes, specifically with the local suburban housewives club. The mob boss practically chokes on his spit. Up in the rafters, the hardcore assassin's brain totally short-circuits, mentally picturing his terrifying boss baking cupcakes. Before they can recover, Sora hits them with a combo. Oh, and the weekly undercover ballet lessons. The ninja immediately visualizes a tutu on the crime lord. Sweating profusely, the dad shoots a panicked glare at his hidden guard. The assassin gulps. Suddenly, the vibe in the dining room shifts from wholesome to absolute killer intent. Clinging to his pride, the old man claims any dedicated stalker could have dug up that intel. Sora just leans back grinning. All right then, how about some core family lore? The mafia boss narrows his eyes, daring the kid to try. Sora locks eyes with him, flat out stating that his dad is going to deeply regret this next reveal. Trembling slightly but refusing to back down, his father gives the green light. The protagonist doesn't hold back, exposing the ultimate truth: the legendary family katana is a straight-up cheap plastic replica. Up in the shadows, the assassin's worldview shatters. The dad furiously slams the table, screaming nonsense, demanding hard evidence for such absolute disrespect. Cool as ice, Sora points out the tiny teeth marks totally mangling the sword's hilt. The ninja is having an existential crisis. He was explicitly told the boss made those marks biting the blade, while slaughtering 38 armed rivals with his hands tied. Without warning, Sora smoothly slides the blade from its scabbard. The loyal assassin instantly switches to combat mode, entirely convinced. This whole story time was a massive setup to slice the Don's throat. But instead of swinging, Sora just jams the razor-sharp tip directly into his own palm. Look, it literally collapses like a movie prop, he deadpans. The tough mob boss instantly shatters, sobbing as he tackles Sora into a massive bear hug, crying about how he thought his baby boy was gone forever. The prodigal son has finally returned. Between tearful hiccups, the old man vents about the absolute hell they survived, pouring all their cash into shady info brokers just to find him. And somehow, during the chaotic search, the gentle dad accidentally became the city's most lethal underworld boss. Sora chuckles at the sobbing gangster awkwardly, asking if the ceiling ninja wants to hop down and join the family reunion. Up above, the elite killer is having a total mental breakdown. He served a master who supposedly bathed in the blood of his enemies. And yet, here he is, watching the most ruthless man in the city cry like a toddler. Witnessing this highly classified honor-destroying moment, the assassin decides his best survival tactic is sprinting to another country. But as he moves, Sora's grip crushes his ankle. Hold up, Sora smiles. Dad wants a word. Fast forward 5 minutes, and it's the most awkward 4-person dinner party in history. Wiping his nose, the mafia boss glares at his ninja, muttering that out of the entire hit squad. Okiai is literally the biggest loudmouth snitch in the business. Sora casually sips his tea, letting the assassin know that if the Tutu story hits the streets, he's a dead man. Sweating through his mask, Okiai aggressively swears absolute silence, thinking to himself that these two terrifying weirdos are 100% genetically related. But his mom immediately shuts down the threats. Okiai looks at the madam visibly touched, but she hits him with a death glare, warning him to keep his mouth shut. Okiai bows his head, totally submitting. Meanwhile, his dad completely ruins the tension loudly, bragging about how relieved he is that Sora didn't expose his embarrassing snoring or sleep farting habits. His mom just deadpans, pointing out that he literally just snitched on himself. For a split second, Sora feels like he's been dragged right back into the suffocating chaos of the abyss. He finally thought he was safe at home until the front door violently swings open. That same street punk from earlier barges in yelling for his boss and claiming some white-haired kid is hunting him down. The punk freezes mid-sentence the second his eyes lock onto our boy. Sora tilts his head casually, asking if he's the guy he's looking for. The thug instantly starts sweating, bullets visibly shook. "It is you," the punk stammers, immediately trying to front by bragging that while Sora might hit hard, they've got the massive numbers advantage. He accuses Sora of plotting to assassinate his boss, demanding to know if he's secretly working for the Tiger's Roar gang. Instead of answering, Sora lunges and locks in a brutal leg grip. Staring literal daggers into the punk's soul, Sora shoots a chilling glance at his dad, asking why he hasn't formally introduced his own flesh and blood to his crew yet. Stepping up, the old man proudly announces that this absolute unit is his son, the exact same kid who vanished off the face of the earth 5 years ago and just miraculously walked back through the front door. The dad tries to hype up Sora's stats, only to awkwardly realize he has zero clue what his kid's level actually is. Without missing a beat, Sora drops a massive bombshell. He doesn't even have the system. The entire room goes dead silent in shock. Jaws drop as the crew demands to know how anyone could possibly survive the brutal fallen zones for 5 whole years, completely systemless. One of the thugs scoffs, claiming that without system support, getting past level 10 is mathematically impossible, no matter how insanely hard you grind. Another lackey starts losing his mind, wondering what kind of sick joke this is, furious that this so-called powerhouse is technically just a glitchy, systemless noob. The ponytailed punk shakes his head, convincing himself they must have massively overestimated the kid. Still, he can't wrap his brain around how a raw beginner completely tanked that massive impact earlier without taking a single scratch, looking down on them like actual trash. Our MC coldly challenges them to whip out their precious system and try scanning his stats themselves. The punk looks totally lost, mocking Sora for not even knowing the absolute basics since he's unawakened. He smugly explains that while the system easily flags monster levels, peeking at another human's stats requires an ultra-rare inspection skill. His dad backs this up, chiming in that barely any top-tier hunters even possess that kind of overpowered ability. But the thug smirks, bragging that their boss actually has it equipped. Hearing this, Sora turns to his dad, practically daring him to run the scan, secretly hoping this scan might spit out some crucial lore about the abyss. The whole squad crowds around the boss as he fires up the skill. Glancing over, Sora asks if his mom wants to peep his stats too. She just warmly smiles, saying she cares way more about just being physically close to him again. Plus, a mother's intuition already tells her exactly how strong he is. The entire room gasps the second the system interface pops up over Sora. Sweating profusely, his dad mutters that he keeps spamming the skill, but the result is a dead end. His screen is showing absolutely zero data. He breaks down the two possible theories. 1. The system is completely ghosting Sora because he isn't integrated into the network. Or 2. His actual power level is so astronomically high that it straight up broke the scanner's limits. The weirdest part, even without system integration, his basic name tag still hovers above his head. Plus, applying basic logic here, if Sora was truly a level-capped scrub, the Abyss would have turned him into Monster Chow on day 1. His dad concludes that his son's power is literally off the charts, dying to know what kind of hellish training arc his boy went through during those 5 missing years. But his mom quickly redirects the vibe, reminding everyone they should just be hyped he's breathing. She knows her baby boy is tough as nails, acknowledging the sheer brutal trauma he must have survived just to find his way back. Hearing those words, our MC's voice utterly cracks, tears flooding his eyes as violent flashbacks of the Abyss mercilessly crash over him. The stone-cold badass finally shatters, sobbing like a kid. He desperately tries to comfort her, promising that the nightmare is permanently over now that he's home, begging her not to shed another tear. Standing off to the side, his dad watches the emotional reunion unfold, vigorously fighting back his own waterworks. Clearing his throat, he immediately signals his goons to pack it up and step out, ordering them to give the mother and son some much-needed breathing room. The second he slides the door shut, the boss mode reactivates. He turns to his crew, demanding to know what the hell is holding up Jiro's squad, since they've been missing in action for over 2 solid hours. Back inside the quiet room, Sora immediately interrogates his mom about his brother, practically begging her not to drop any tragic news about him. She quickly calms his panic, confirming his bro is perfectly fine. He just rarely ever stops by the house anymore, because he's totally locked into his military duties. Now that Sora has essentially respawned, she offers to patch him through, immediately revealing that his brother has been violently grinding on the front lines this entire time, treating every battle like a revenge mission for Sora's disappearance. Sora admits it's been an eternity since they last hung out, but right now he pivots the conversation, deeply curious about whether his mom is secretly pulling the strings around this base. She humbly admits she definitely holds rank, but clarifies that the crew treats her like royalty simply because she's an elite cleric, a hard carry support player dropping massive heals, insane buffs, and actual real-time prophecies. Catching on to that last detail, Sora instantly asks if she can use her clairvoyance to figure out exactly what the hell is going on with his glitchy body. But she shakes her head, explaining her magic doesn't work like an X-ray for stats. While clerics can catch glimpses of the future, she didn't even need a vision to know her boy was destined to survive and make it back. Suddenly, heavy footsteps echo through the compound. A guard forcefully yanks the door open, barking at whoever is standing in the shadows. The guard immediately backs down, coming face to face with the Syndicate's heavily anticipated second-in-command. The boss steps up, formally greeting Jiro Iwashima, the ruthless vice president of the United Guilds. But the pleasantries die fast when the boss spots Jiro's incredibly sour expression. He instantly demands a situation report, asking if the mission went sideways after he specifically assigned lookouts to monitor the perimeter. Jiro spits venom, confirming their worst paranoid theories. The Tiger's Roar gang is 100% in bed with the military. His crew successfully hauled the monster loot over. But per usual, some annoying bureaucratic suit with a clipboard started aggressively grilling them, throwing up massive red tape. Right after the tense inspection wrapped up, things got ridiculously chaotic when they collided head-on with a squad from the Tiger's Roar. Gritting his teeth, Sora's dad mutters a dark confirmation of the betrayal. His mind races, realizing that if a so-called neutral powerhouse like the Tiger's Roar is secretly moving pawns behind their backs, a massive bloody turf war is practically inevitable. Something massive is definitely brewing behind the scenes. Sakuya makes it clear they cannot just sit on the sidelines, but for right now, he tells his crew to chill, grab some food, and catch their breath. In a flash of light, he spawns his blade, declaring he is crashing the Tiger's Roar headquarters later. He needs answers about the chaos, and honestly, he is ready to flex exactly what the United Guilds bring to the table. Eavesdropping from nearby, Sora catches every single word and locks that guild name in his memory. His recent level-ups did not just boost his raw attack power, his senses are absolutely dialed in, letting him pick up whispers from miles away. He low-key sweats the idea of his dad trying to play the diplomat, knowing how sideways things could go. Swinging his door wide open right as they walk by, he flat-out announces he is tagging along. The delinquent squad member immediately gets hyped, praying this means he finally gets a front-row seat to witness Sora's hidden overpowered stats. Jiro just stares totally lost, demanding to know who this random kid is. The boss drops the lore. It is his son Sora, the one who vanished off the map 5 years back. Jiro immediately asks for his combat level. Sakuya glances at his boy, admitting to the crew that Sora's status window is completely unreadable. Jiro does the math and assumes the worst. He is just a normie. He points out the brutal truth that surviving in this world without a system is basically a death sentence, saying he would get wiped out in less than 3 days. Even with top-tier survival instincts, the wasteland is completely unforgiving, and a guy with zero skills is just going to drag the whole party down. Jiro drops a fake smile, telling the kid to stay back and let the real hunters handle the heavy lifting. Sakuya backs up his subordinate, telling Sora to kick back at home with his mom. She instantly agrees, super eager to finally give him a proper tour of their place. Internally, Sora gets it. They think he is pure dead weight in a fight, which makes total sense, considering he looks like a completely average civilian. Plus, stepping back gives him time to actually study the inner workings of this massive survivor shelter. If an apex predator is lurking in the shadows, keeping his insane abilities under wraps is the only way to keep a target off his parents' backs. Playing along, Sora nods and agrees to stay behind. Meanwhile, the delinquent is internally raging about missing the chance to see a god-tier carry in action. Sakuya rallies the troops and marches out into the danger zone. Our boy just leans against the wall, tracking their exit. His mom tries to comfort him, promising there is zero reason to stress. They just got their family back together, and tossing him into the crossfire is not on the agenda. She looks him dead in the eye, reminding him that his dad is an absolute unit. Plus, her foresight ability practically guarantees he will walk through the front door without a scratch. Sora gently brushes off the babying, reminding her he is a grown man now. He totally trusts her clairvoyant skills to predict the future. But the reality is brutal. His dad is marching straight into a turf war against a military-backed syndicate. He needs the raw facts. What is the actual political climate in this base, and why is Tiger's Roar hunting for blood? She drops the backstory right after the apocalypse hit. Awakened humans built this faction. His dad went on a massive campaign to ally the scattered groups, even partnering with the military, all driven by the hope of tracking down his missing son. The alliance exploded in numbers, drawing in warriors who respected his emotional crusade. For years, the United Guilds became the ultimate shield for the community, farming loot drops and wiping out beast waves, leaving the military to focus entirely on conquering the tower. Honestly, his dad's pure heart made it all work. They locked down total peace for 4 straight years. But a few months ago, the absolute titans from the 4th shelter, Tiger's Roar, invaded their territory. The tension instantly spiked, and they have been locked in a cold war ever since. Sora questions why the military is just watching from the sidelines. She sighs, explaining that the threat level keeps scaling up, leaving the army completely outmatched. Tiger's Roar is not just big, they are an untouchable powerhouse. In this world, tower intel is worth its weight in gold. Worse, their rival roster features a hunter handpicked by a literal cosmic entity. Having an Ezra is the ultimate cheat code. Sora pauses, asking what a tower deity actually is. She describes them as the supreme architects of the dungeon, wielding power that mortals can only describe as divine. Survive their impossible trials, and you earn the title of Ezra. Out in the real world, they are worshipped as holy prophets and untouchable enforcers. And unfortunately, Tiger's Roar has a monopoly on these god-tier fighters. They have steamrolled their way into claiming almost every zone. The crazy part, the citizens absolutely idolize them, even with 0 tower clears on their record. His dad's squad is the only faction drowning because they lack a divine champion. Sora processes the grim reality, wondering why, if the locals respect his dad's alliance so much, they dress and operate like a literal mafia family. His mom giggles, admitting the gangster aesthetic is just an inside joke. Sora is stunned, but she just laughs it off, claiming the mobster vibe works as long as morale is high. Noticing his exhaustion, she tells him to hit the showers and recharge. She offers the classic mom treatment of scrubbing his back, but Sora instantly dodges, insisting he can handle his own hygiene. She smiles, realizing her little boy is truly a man now. The second the door clicks shut, the atmosphere shifts. Assuming the coast is clear, he instantly sparks his dark abyss aura. He severely underestimated how toxic the turf war had become. Unable to shake the bad vibes, he slides his window open and launches himself straight into the night sky. From down the hall, his mom tracks his energy signature. She shakes her head with a smirk, whispering about how teenagers simply refuse to follow instructions. Across the city, Sakuya and his loyal enforcers are marching directly into the belly of the beast at Tiger's Roar. Gliding above the rooftops, our overpowered lead notices the outer sectors are pitched black. Honestly, the lack of lighting makes tracking his dad's squad incredibly easy. He has their coordinates locked down. But mid-flight, a sudden wave of extreme vertigo hits him, a brutal side effect of absorbing those forbidden abyss shards. This dude literally never gets sick, not even a sniffle. Out of nowhere, this creepy voice echoes out, calling him the seed of the abyss and vowing to hunt him down. Sora instantly clocks that voice. It belongs to that one guy, but his radar is totally blank. Is this dude masking his aura or what? Bingo. He actually infiltrated Shelter 6. A massive wave of vertigo hits Sora as the phantom voice keeps looping its threat like a broken record, claiming his soul is permanently branded. Sora throws a vicious punch at the stalker. Is he hallucinating right now? His fist straight up phases right through the guy's body, a literal soul mark. Meanwhile, the ghost just keeps chanting that same eerie sentence. Suddenly, blinding flashlights lock onto our boy. Patrol guards start interrogating him about lurking around this late. Sora realizes he must have yelled out loud and totally blown his cover. He immediately bolts, assuming the weird glitch vanished. But the second his boots hit the pavement, that sinister soul mark materializes again, swearing the seed of the abyss will never break free. Wait, did the flashlight beam actually erase it earlier? He decides to run a quick test and steps right under a glowing street lamp. Everything clicks. If he chills in the shadows for exactly 7 seconds, the soul mark triggers, bringing that nasty head spin right back. Freaking out actually shifts the hallucination's dialogue. He mockingly mimics the phantom's creepy tone, earning a major side-eye from a random lady who probably thinks he lost his mind, reminding him that he is the only one who can see this ghostly stalker. Sticking to the lit paths keeps the vision away, but replaces it with this agonizing, high-pitched ringing in his skull. Eventually, the branding fades and the creepy stalker totally drops off his radar. It makes absolute sense why this never happened earlier. He was either soaking up daylight or chilling under the bright bulbs at home. As the cursed mark flares up again, a dark realization hits Sora. This enemy might be tracking his exact coordinates. A deadly ambush could drop on him at any second, meaning his guard has to stay at 100%. First priority, though, tracking down his dad. He snaps at the phantom to shut his mouth, catching another totally weirded out look from a passing pedestrian. Sora just keeps walking in dead silence. A random car cruises past, blasting him with its bright headlights. That confirms his theory: the ghost is completely powerless in the light. If his mom's intel was right, the military is officially done using the United Guilds, which puts his pops in massive danger. He has zero clue how many heavy hitters are currently hiding out in this shelter. But the army definitely did not team up with the Tiger's Roar Guild just to sit on the sidelines. Honestly, it is basically guaranteed. They are plotting a full wipeout of the United Guilds. If that goes down, Sora is ready to catch bodies to keep his parents breathing. He freezes in the middle of the street, highly doubting they will ever get their peaceful, normal lives back. Up ahead, a massive mob starts swarming. Sora smirks, realizing he finally hit the jackpot. Now he just needs to see how his dad plans to navigate this incredibly tense standoff. A core memory flashes back of his old man preaching that throwing hands should always be the absolute final option. Little Sora nodded along back then. But right now, he is seriously wondering if his dad is going to hold back until it is too late. But then something crazy catches his eye. The top brass are screaming at everyone to clear the blast zone. It is finally going down. It has been a hot minute since the boss actually pulled his blade. The last poor soul who caught the wrong end of that katana walked away with a gnarly 20-meter gash. Sakuya starts channeling some insane aura. Barking at 𝚛𝚘𝚘 to scramble, he closes the distance in a flash, literally slicing a massive canyon into the concrete building. Total, absolute devastation left in his wake, and yet Sakuya is just standing there with a wicked smirk. His whole squad is absolutely losing their minds hyping him up. Sora is completely paralyzed by the sheer flex. As Sakuya clicks his katana back into its scabbard, Sora nudges one of the executives, whispering, "Bro, is the boss man always this unhinged?" The guy just laughs, dropping the reality check that their leader is notorious for throwing hands at zero notice. He looks at Sora like, "Wait, you seriously didn't know?" Elaborating that their boss has a famously short fuse. Sora is mad confused, pointing out that the chief literally preaches about violence being a total last resort. The exec waves it off, explaining that was just his day one mindset, back when he actually trusted the military to clean up the mess. But the plot thickened real quick since then. For the thousands of survivors crashing here, as long as the hunters are putting in the work, and nobody is starving, they could not care less about some collateral damage. Smashing problems right in the jaw just became the ultimate speedrun tactic. The rule is simple: do not start beef if you cannot finish it. Translation: strike first, ask questions never. Watching all this unfold, Sora reflects on his run-in with that weird monk, assuming heavy hitters like to keep a low profile. Yeah, big mistake on his part. Or maybe when you hold this kind of god-tier power, you just do whatever the heck you want, just like his old man. Or maybe that monk is rocking the blindfold purely for the aesthetic. Meanwhile, speaking of the devil, that exact monk is chilling on a rooftop watching the chaos. He is locking onto the whole battlefield. This is Shuzengi Yukio, a level 75 Arhat, running his Sage's Gaze ability on full blast. Yukio is mentally crunching the numbers. A level 90 beast just got absolutely vaporized. 0 artillery required. The thing looked less like it was hunted and more like it got shredded by pure, unadulterated savage strength. Exactly why Yukio knows the world is still crawling with actual demons, proving his whole stay humble philosophy is the only play masking his true stats to look like a basic level 45 monk. Back on the ground, the building is literal dust, when suddenly some absolute clown starts screaming at Sakuya, calling him a delusional punk for acting like they are still living in the Wild West era of the early shelters. Sakuya casually brushes off the dust, hitting back that sure times have evolved, but obnoxious pests like him are still crawling around. The boss flexes that he should have permanently muted this guy ages ago. The dude doubles down, daring Sakuya to finish the job right now unless he is suddenly chickening out. You do not just disrespect Sakuya and walk away. The blade sings as it leaves the scabbard again instantly, making the loudmouth violently shiver in his boots. The guy is internally sweating bullets, praying he has baited the trap perfectly, and his backup is about to spawn in, or worrying he messed up the whole script. So he pushes harder, screaming that Sakuya is a total fraud who cannot even swing his own weapon, and that his whole squad is about to end up as fodder for the Tiger's Roar Guild. Sakuya launches forward, spitting the word garbage, but a magical shield instantly blocks his fatal strike. The bait dude mentally fist pumps the trap, has officially snapped shut. A booming voice commands everyone to freeze. The newcomer growls that sparking a turf war inside a designated safe zone is a wildly arrogant move. Enter Usui Osamu, clocking in at level 63. Sakuya's right-hand man loses it, yelling that this snake is clearly in bed with Tiger's Roar, demanding answers. The pieces click for Sora. This is the military lapdog bankrolled by their rivals. Sora knows there is 0% chance this is random timing. It is glaringly obvious there are moles crawling all over this sector. This dude popping up at the exact second the sword dropped, definitely scripted. The two antagonists slowly box Sakuya in. It hits the boss like a freight train the brass has been secretly buffing Tiger's Roar this entire time. Osamu coldly quotes Article 15, strictly outlawing any brawls inside shelter limits. He lays out the penalty. The one who throws the first punch gets locked up for a minimum of 15 days. Or if the vibes are bad enough, a literal public execution. He then smirks, asking if Sakuya is going to play nice and surrender. The boss instantly decodes the entire setup. This was a coordinated aggro pull. The microsecond he swung his blade, they secured the legal green light to slap him in cuffs. They absolutely did not care if their shady under-the-table alliance leaked out. All that mattered was framing him as the villain. Because if he actually lets them put him in irons right now, they will stretch out his prison time forever and definitely assassinate him behind bars, spinning it as some tragic accident. And the second he is out of the picture, his entire guild gets completely swallowed by Tiger's Roar. But what is truly bothering him is why a military top dog is sweating this hard, just to shatter the local power dynamics. The endgame is a mystery, but Sakuya refuses to be a pawn in this twisted game. Hard pass. He flips the script, telling the officer his radar is completely broken. There was no brawl. As a guildmaster, he is not about to catch with absolutely zero receipts. Osamu counters that the massive steaming crater from the sword strike is all the evidence he needs. Sakuya literally scoffs. He deadpan claims that is not a combat scar, it was just some spontaneous extreme building renovation. Osamu's eyes go cold, pointing out that Sakuya is missing the bigger picture. Osamu is the one holding the gavel here, and if he officially labels it an attempted murder, then that is gospel. It was checkmate the second Sakuya walked into the zone, so he better just take the handcuffs quietly like a good boy. The loyal subordinate snaps, yelling at his boss that they are not taking this L. If these feds want a war, they will give them one. But Sakuya immediately signals him to chill. Everyone is standing in the crosshairs, and one wrong move means catching a bullet. He locks eyes with the level 63 officer, mentally clocking the dude's insane assassin tier agility. Pinning down a target that fast is going to be a nightmare. But if they can snatch Wada and use him as a human shield, they might actually survive this trap. The dude unsheaths his blade, making the duo brace for impact. Wada immediately pops his anti-sword barrier, determined not to be the weak link in this fight. You see, an executor does not just block like your average tank. Their defensive kit literally dissects enemy attack patterns in real time. Even at point-blank range, Wada is confident he can tank the hit. There is just one catch, though his barrier only works against bladed weapons. But that ultra-specific condition is exactly why it is so wildly overpowered against swordsmen. This thing could easily shrug off a heavy strike from a level 69 warrior. So, a level 65 samurai, absolute child's play. Believing his defenses are completely unbreakable against Sakuya, Wada screams at him to just surrender. Stepping up, Osamu gives him a brutal ultimatum. Be a good boy, and stand down, or get hogtied and tossed into a dungeon with the rest of his crew. Jiro nervously calls out to his boss. Sakuya gnashes his teeth, looking totally cornered, before slowly sliding his katana back into its scabbard right in front of them. The entire squad gasps in pure shock. Osamu just smirks, mocking the guy for finally using his brain and taking the easy way out. But his crew knows better. They realize the enemies are totally underestimating their boss, and that whole submission act is just a massive bait. Jiro catches the hidden signal immediately. Get ready to strike the second that blade flashes. The bad guys have absolutely zero clue that these two are syncing up a deadly combo. Sakuya completely drops his weapon. For a split second, Wada loses track of it, but then the samurai dashes straight at him, completely unarmed. The tank scoffs, thinking he is totally safe behind his anti-blade enchantment. But out of nowhere, Sakuya magically retrieves his weapon mid-sprint. Wada practically laughs, wondering if this fool actually believes he can shatter a barrier built to withstand level 70 tier damage. But that is when Jiro pops his ultimate support move, manipulating the loose rubble scattered across the battlefield. Chunks of rock magnetize to the katana's tip, transforming the slender blade into a massive stone sledgehammer. The heavy blunt force impact completely obliterates the barrier into a million pieces. Waida's eyes widen as he realizes they bypassed his sword-only defense with a blunt, crushing attack. Sakuya instantly follows up with a fierce lunge, but Osamu barks that he sees right through their little scheme. The assassin dashes in, growling that targeting him is a one-way ticket to the afterlife. Jiro screams for him to back off instantly, erupting jagged stone spikes from the earth to block his path. Dodging with insane reflexes, Osamu chuckles. He mocks the kid for having the sheer audacity to challenge him, daring them to actually try and land a fatal blow. Suddenly, the enemy grunts open fire on the duo. Snapping his fingers, Jiro channels his mana to manifest a glowing force field, keeping Sakuya and his target safe from the bullet hail. Sakuya mentally celebrates. If they can just keep this guy pinned down, making a clean getaway will be a total walk in the park. But just as he pivots to grab his captive, the unthinkable happens. Waida literally evaporates right in front of his eyes. Smug as ever, Osamu explains the trick. Jiro's rock spikes inadvertently plunged the area into deep shadow, while the lingering magic from Waida's broken barrier acted as a glowing homing beacon. Those exact two elements were the perfect recipe for Osamu to trigger his broken assassin ability, Shadow Trance. Just like that, their only leverage is gone. Without a hostage, their chances of survival plummet straight to absolute zero. Osamu coldly orders his firing squad to exterminate them. Sakuya and Jiro freeze in pure terror, but bizarrely, even the enemy troops start stuttering at their boss. Highly annoyed, Osamu demands to know why everyone looks like they just saw a ghost. Suddenly, a heavy hand drops onto his shoulder, accompanied by an absolutely suffocating aura. It is Sora. The overpowered main character casually whispers that he is curious about their dumbfounded faces too. Osamu feels a chill down his spine, desperately wondering if this random monster is Mukushima's backup. Someone actually managed to stealth up on a master assassin. Osamu has no clue who this dude is, but his killer instinct screams that this is a lethal threat. Operating on pure panic, Osamu decides to strike first. He secretly readies a toxic vial behind his back, which Waida instantly recognizes as their ultimate trump card. It is the exact lethal venom the Tiger's Roar Guild brewed specifically to melt a level 90 raid boss. Osamu screams for his ally to scatter, violently launching 3 poisoned blades straight at Sora. Sakuya shrieks his kid's name in pure agony. Waida suddenly realizes the toxic splash zone is going to melt them all, as a sickly purple cloud rapidly swallows the battlefield. The grunts frantically scramble to outrun the deadly fog. Waida hates this chaotic suicide play, but he copes by assuming this mysterious new enemy is definitely a melting corpse by now. Wrong. Sora literally just swats the air, like he is batting away a mildly annoying mosquito. A massive shockwave instantly clears the deadly smog. Waida's jaw hits the floor. How in the world is this guy still breathing after inhaling venom, meant for a level 90 calamity? Osamu's brain completely short-circuits in disbelief. Get this, Sora is casually gripping the poisoned blades with his teeth. Not only that, he has both assassins suspended in mid-air by their collars, letting out the most bored sigh imaginable. Spitting the deadly weapons onto the dirt, he coldly asks the duo where exactly they thought they were escaping to. Waida grinds his teeth, absolutely seething at the massive flex. In this world, no matter your class, your survival boils down to 5 base stats: perception, intelligence, strength, agility, and constitution. For this guy to casually tank a boss-tier biological weapon, his constitution stat has to be hovering somewhere around the level 100 threshold. Absolute insanity. Sora firmly commands the assassin to call off his attack dogs. Furious at being ordered around, Osamu triggers his shadow buff fiercely, locking his grip onto Sora's arm. Using the momentum, Osamu swings his entire body upward, snapping the overpowered MC into a brutal headlock while screaming at him to shut his mouth. Seeing Sora momentarily tangled up, Waida thinks this is the perfect window to strike. He unloads his strongest skill, but Sora effortlessly sways out of the danger zone without even breaking a sweat. With a casual flick of his wrist, Sora literally yeets both grown men across the battlefield. Sakuya just watches in awe as the 2 elites fly past his face, violently cratering into a solid rock face. Shielding his eyes from the massive dust cloud, Sakuya realizes the terrible duo has been completely trashed. Refusing to take the massive loss, Osamu desperately melts back into the shadows. Sora calmly glances over his shoulder. The bleeding assassin snarls from the darkness, betting everything that this brute force monster cannot possibly counter his absolute stealth technique. Lunging from the blind spot, Osamu thrusts his dagger directly at the protagonist's spine for a lethal sneak attack, but there is zero impact. The blade just magically halts in thin air. Panic sets in as Osamu realizes he just stabbed a literal brick wall. His blade is completely stuck, and before he can even blink, Sora winds up a devastating punch. The overpowered teen casually yanks the blade right out of his own back. Scrambling away, the terrified assassin notices he's actively bleeding just from the sheer air pressure of Sora's missed strike. Flight instinct kicks in, but it's utterly useless against a guy who practically teleports. Sora materializes dead ahead and ruthlessly plants the attacker's face straight into the concrete. Sputtering blood, Osamu can't even process that insane speed glitch. Our hero casually dusts himself off while Jiro just stands there absolutely flabbergasted by the sheer disrespect. Dragging the unconscious assassin by the collar like a discarded ragdoll, Sora strolls over to his dad. The surrounding guards practically shrink into their armor, exchanging pure looks of terror. Tossing the trash aside, our MC drops a casual, "I'll let you guys handle the rest," and heads out. Sakuya doesn't even argue. Cut to the Mukojima household, where his anxious mom desperately asks if the nightmare has finally ended. The patriarch gives a heavy nod. When Jiro presses to see if the captive squealed, Sakuya sighs, admitting those goons took the silent treatment to the grave. Honestly, it's whatever. At least now they know exactly where the Tiger's Roar Guild stands. Still, they're going to have to sleep with one eye open for the next couple of days. Dropping the guild drama, the dad immediately pivots to the elephant in the room. Where on earth has his boy been for half a decade? Sora takes a breath, explaining that watching his family struggle broke something inside him. The guilt ate him alive, but before he could fix it 5 years ago, he got sucked into some twisted nightmare dimension. His entire existence became an endless loop of slaughtering grotesque beasts. They immediately suspect he got trapped inside one of the infamous dungeons. Holding nothing back, the teen spills every gruesome detail about surviving the abyss, wrapping up with the insane plot twist that a random summoner literally dragged him back to reality. Frowning, Sakuya points out that there are exactly 16 known spires on the map, and not a single one matches that hellscape. Shrugging, Sora guesses he stumbled into an uncharted zone. Jiro chimes in hyped that if this mystery dungeon is anywhere near Outpost 6, they can definitely make raiding it their top priority. But Sakuya shuts down the tactical talk, getting entirely choked up just seeing his kid breathing in front of him. Breaking the tension, Jiro bursts out laughing, pointing out the absolute irony that the runaway kid came back billions of power levels above the rest of them combined. Wiping away tears, his mom declares that nothing in the past matters now that our baby boy is safe. Pulling them close, the patriarch vows that absolutely nothing is tearing this family apart ever again. Staring at the fresh, jagged scars marking his dad's skin matching his own battle wounds, Sora silently swears to protect them. Right on cue, the entire house plunges into pitch blackness. A violent wave of vertigo hits the teen out of nowhere. While Sakuya questions the sudden power outage, Jiro brushes it off, blaming the brutal thunderstorm rolling through town tonight. Every survival instinct in Sora's brain screams red alert. Echoing in the shadows, that creepy, familiar voice hisses that there's zero chance of escape this time around. The MC grits his teeth, genuinely annoyed by the sheer audacity of this stalker returning. However, he quickly notices the entity's creepy monologue has completely shifted its script. The real kicker, even his high-tier awakened parents are acting totally blind to the haunting presence in the room. Without warning, the suffocating dark aura abruptly peels away. For a split second, he thinks the ghost vanished, only to realize the dark mass literally detached itself from his own shadow. The ominous figure smirks, dropping a chilling, long time no see. Sora's mind races. The parasite actually evolved a personality. Still, since the thing looks semi-transparent, he figures it's just a residual mental glitch he can easily squash later. Gliding across the floorboards, the shadowy stalker gets right in his face, mocking the teen for trying to play the silent treatment card. "Are you seriously dense enough to think I'm still just a trick of the light?" the entity whispers, locking onto Sora's gaze. Instantly, the world snaps to absolute black. Panic spikes as the MC realizes his eyesight has been completely stolen. This is definitely no fake vision. Sensing the sudden shift in his demeanor, the whole room goes on high alert. His mom frantically screams his name, while his dad demands to know why his eyes just went entirely dead. Wasting zero time, his mother immediately triggers a high-level cleansing spell, but the UI frustratingly rejects it, flashing a no-curse detected error. Ice floods Sora's veins as it clicks. The shadow actually formed a physical body, meaning his defenseless family is right in the crosshairs. Relying purely on instinct, he violently tackles the invisible intruder straight into the drywall. His stunned parents finally spot their son, wrestling a mass of pure void. The entity chuckles, taunting the boy for acting so terrified. Gripping his weapon, Sakuya yells out, completely blind to the ethereal enemy in the room. His mom echoes the panic, desperately scanning the empty space with zero luck. Pinning the shadow down, Sora demands to know why this creep won't leave him alone, but the phantom just laughs off the hostility. Deciding it's time for some flair, the monster finally drops his gamer tag. Bow down to Fodel, a high-ranking noble of the Celestial Winged faction and literal deity of the void, he gloats. He then points a smoky finger, accusing the teen of looting the abyss, and sponging up the forbidden, discarded energy his holy race dumped down there, the raw essence of darkness itself. By somehow breaking out of that hellish prison solo, Sora has basically painted a massive target on his back for the heavenly enforcers. Those celestial hit squads are mobilizing as they speak, meaning if our guy values his pulse, his only survival play is sprinting right back into that cursed dungeon. The MC's brain scrambles instantly, linking these enforcers to those mythological Aesir beings his mom warned him about earlier. Completely out of the loop on the lore drop, 𝚙𝚘𝚘 tightly grips his blade, his gut screaming that they are sitting right in the middle of a war zone. His mom desperately pulls her husband back, insisting they can't blindly attack without assessing the threat to their boy. Meanwhile, the overpowered teen flexes, declaring he'd happily throw hands with the heavens themselves. Bring down an entire army of deities. I don't care what makes you think they can scratch me, he spits. Fodel shakes his head, warning the arrogant kid to check his ego immediately, reminding him that pulling off one lucky win against a weakened god doesn't make him invincible. The dark deity drops some ancient history, revealing that ever since the legendary Ragnarok event, the sacred wind energy was completely wiped from existence. Basically, Sora's current stats are absolute trash compared to the prime heavenly ranks. Our hero glares, challenging why he should trust a word from a shadowy parasite. Hearing this, Fodel absolutely loses his mind, laughing. Stay oblivious if you want, kid, but don't go crying when the skies literally start raining blood, the god mocks. The threat hits hard enough to shut the protagonist up entirely. Logically trusting a demonic stalker is a rookie mistake, but something deep in his gut screams that the warning is completely legit. Before he can argue back, an earth-shattering crack tears through the room. A blinding shockwave of pure holy aura completely floods the living room, causing the dark god to shriek like a banshee. Blinking against the flash, the MC realizes his blindness has been instantly cured, while his shadowy captive is currently melting into a puddle of agony on the floor. I'd take his word for it, a calm, booming voice echoes out. 𝚙𝚘𝚘's eyes widen as he instantly recognizes the unexpected guest. Whipping his head around, Sora spots the exact same wandering monk he bumped into at the city gates earlier. When he asks how his parents know this guy, his dad drops a bombshell. This holy man is way more than just a casual contact. This dude literally co-founded the guild alongside him. Right now, Fodel is throwing a massive tantrum, screaming at the monk to release him, while Sora just stares completely baffled. Wait, you can actually see this guy. Yukio cuts the tension, declaring a total state of emergency. They need to talk right now. 𝚙𝚘𝚘 isn't having it, demanding someone explain what the actual hell is happening. The monk stays cool, claiming his answers totally depend on how his upcoming chat with Sora plays out. Fast forward a bit into the night. Sora tries to dig into this whole emergency situation, but Yukio immediately cuts him off. Listen, I might not be an Ezra, but my enlightened vision lets me see straight into divine power. That exact vision. It is the only reason I could pull off a forbidden technique and lock this supposed god away. And here is the crazy part. Your energy feels exactly like his, but dialed up to an absolutely insane level. I have no clue how you pulled that off. And honestly, we have zero time to figure it out. The city is currently swarming with heavy hitters packing serious divine juice. Every single one of them is gunning for your aura. Whatever this sealed guy is plotting, his warning was dead on. But whatever you do, do not step foot back in the abyss. That tower is hiding pure nightmare fuel. He was totally baiting you back there, just to leech his powers back. Your best play right now, ditch this place entirely and sign up with the military. Sora looks at him like he is crazy. Bro, are we forgetting they literally tried to blow me up? Yukio sighs, admitting the army is completely toxic right now, but he has an inside contact he actually trusts. Get under her wing, and you are untouchable. Sora instantly claps back, arguing that his family would still be sitting ducks. The monk just waves it off. Chill out. The Ezra pride themselves on not touching ordinary civilians. Plus, you are forgetting I am still here. I will drop anyone who even looks at your parents funny. Do not forget our Arhats can easily go toe-to-toe with the Ezra from the Tiger's Roar Guild. Cut to the villains. Hero Ryusei, the Ezra of Ares, is absolutely complaining. He thinks sending 4 elite fighters after some systemless kid is a total joke. Jiraiya Yukinojo, holding the Hades title, drops the intel 𝚙𝚘𝚘's kid, the one who went off the grid for years, just breached the tower. He smirks, claiming a scrub like that is light work for Hero alone. Hero immediately snaps, ready to throw hands until someone grabs his shoulder. Dugami Rimu, the Athena Ezra, steps in to kill the beef. But then the absolute heavy hitter speaks up. Mukai Lich announces he is personally joining the hunt. Iwagaya Kaiichi, representing Hermes, is shocked that the boss is tagging along. Mukai keeps it icy, revealing this came straight from the top. An absolute order from Zeus. The mission is brutally simple, that punk Sora gets deleted. On top of that, the 16th tower is suspiciously close to Shelter 6. Since the Alliance decided to act tough and ghosted their proposal, the guild is going completely rogue. This is not just a basic assassination. We are wiping out Sora, and we are exterminating his parents, the heads of the Alliance. Mukai declares this with zero hesitation, fully flexing his status as the Ezra of Zeus. Meanwhile, back at the Alliance base, Yukio wraps up his massive lore dump. Your next stop is the central base to link up with Mei. She is a solid ally of mine, so she will definitely watch your back. And hey, keep an eye on that curse circle. If all-out war drops, not even the Tiger's Roar Guild can save themselves from the fallout. Yoyi chimes in, reminding them that the Alliance planted their base here for a strategic reason. Sora has absolutely nothing to stress over. Sora just nods it off. Flash forward about 15 minutes. The monk is chilling by the entrance when the surrounding trees start violently shaking. Yukio smirks. The ops have arrived. A tidal wave of pitch-black energy swallows the yard, but Yukio instantly pops his ultimate defense, the Golden Bell Curtain. The dark wave violently bounces right back. The crew inside braces for the shockwave, but it is already too late. The 4 Ezra elites are stacked at the front door. Yukio senses their massive numbers instantly picking out Mukai, swaggering up from the back while his squad parts like the Red Sea. They respectfully hype up their boss. Yukio mentally notes that things just got incredibly real if the top dog Mukai actually showed his face. Mukai barks an order to Yukinojo, who does not skip a beat. Channeling his aura straight into his fingertips, he casts a deadly net of energy that completely wraps around the crib. Sakuya panics, asking what kind of trick that is. Yukio realizes they are totally screwed, that demonic radar just pinned the exact location of every single Alliance member. They even locked onto the cloaked stealth unit. Running is officially off the table. Sweating, Sakuya activates her eye of searching to scan the enemy stats. She checks the boss and his goons, then goes completely pale. The level gap is absolutely astronomical. Yukio sarcastically asks what brings them out for a midnight stroll, but Yukinojo cuts to the chase. His spirit radar confirms Sora is nowhere to be found. Mukai aggressively demands the kid's location. Yukio just plays dumb, shrugging and asking what they are even yapping about, since he has zero context. Hiro absolutely loses it, screaming at the bald monk for disrespecting them. Yukio sighs about the kid's lack of manners, slowly peeling off his blindfold. Hiro sneers, promising to hand the monk a one-way ticket to the afterlife if he is that desperate. Meanwhile, tucked safely inside the house, Yoyi pops her ultimate barrier trick. Out of nowhere, a toxic energy wave infects the entire Ezra squad, slapping them with a brutal weakness debuff. Hiro just calls them pathetic and cracks his knuckles. He laughs out loud. Did they seriously think a puny level 68 curse would stop him? Even heavily nerfed, he boasts he could solo the entire Union. He throws a killer punch, but Yukio casually catches it barehanded. Hiro's jaw basically hits the floor. Yukio smirks, telling the kid he severely underestimated the Union. Hiro suddenly checks his stats and starts freaking out. His level just crash-landed to 71. He literally got stripped of over 30 levels in a split second. Yukio coldly reminds him that without his overpowered stats, he is practically nothing. With a lightning-fast counter, the monk shatters his guard, launching the arrogant fighter across the yard like a complete ragdoll. And the craziest part, every single Ezra standing there just suffered that exact same massive level drop. Sakuya breaks down the brutal reality. Getting caught in this hex slashes your stats by half of the caster's level. Do the math, and that is a devastating 34 levels ripped right away from them. Mukai just throws his head back and cracks up, hyping up how insanely fun this is getting. Without missing a beat, he signals Reimu, who is lurking right in his shadow. Holy energy starts pouring out of the girl. Mukai smirks, flexing that as long as he keeps this crew hostage. Sora is absolutely guaranteed to show up. Suddenly, the scenery glitches out, dragging the rest of the squad into a whole new dimension, while Yukio desperately grips his hat. A system window flashes. Welcome to the Colosseum of Athena. Yukio mutters that they are in deep trouble, but Mukai is absolutely living for it, bragging about how long it has been since he actually clashed with a worthy opponent. The dude is practically buzzing with adrenaline, figuring this is the ultimate side quest to kill time, until Sora drops in. As for the absolute mob of enemies blocking his path, his lackeys start sweating, demanding to know what exactly he pulled on the guild leaders. Mukai just materializes his spear out of thin air, declaring zero hesitation. He is wiping every single one of them off the map, right this second. Cut to the absolute wasteland of Area X, where our boy literally drops from the clouds, touching down right beside Mei. Her eyes lock onto the newcomer instantly. Sora pulls up a reference photo, double-checking the vibe and confirming that this girl standing in front of him has to be Mei Tosanaki. He drops his introduction, repping the Alliance, and laying out his mission, securing military backup. Sensing his aura, Mei immediately orders her squad to stand down, calling out that he is the infamous Sora Mukishima, and she has a massive favor to pull. Whipping back to the death match at the Colosseum, Sakuya scans the zone, fuming. Boom, a staff violently pierces the earth, triggering a massive ring of torches to ignite all at once. Remu drops into a hardcore prayer, begging the heavens to spectate this bloodbath and bless her with a clutch miracle to secure the ultimate win. Radiant holy light explodes in the dead center of the ring, shaping into a literal goddess, leaving the entire Alliance squad completely, utterly stunned. Remu lays out the hardcore rule set, a 5-on-5 gauntlet. First crew to bag, 3 dubs, walks away with the insanely overpowered Grace of Olympus, while the losers instantly incinerated by heavenly fire. The tension in the air gets thick enough to cut with a knife. Sakuya immediately calls out the busted math, pointing out they barely have 8 people standing in the room to begin with. Rimuru just smirks, teasing that the real heavy hitters are already en route. Stepping up to the plate, Hiro flexes and demands to know who wants a one-way ticket to the afterlife first. A blinding system alert pops up. The Ezra hero Rusei has initiated a deathmatch. Sakuya practically shatters his own teeth from grinding them so hard. Yukio steps up, taking the heat, and blaming his own rookie mindset for dragging them into this mess. But Sakuya shuts that down, swearing that having him on the front line is a total game changer. He clears Yukio of any guilt, dropping the fact that Yoi's wild hex actually leveled the playing field, giving them a legit shot at survival. Jiro backs up the hype, reminding the squad that since she is purely a support class, they strictly need to clutch up 3 wins. Hearing this, a wicked grin paints itself across Yukio's face. He drops some heavy lore warning that the Ares Ezra is a straight-up psycho. The second that dude leveled up to his current rank, he abused those busted Ares skills to solo wipe a massive guild, completely burying 3 rival Ezras in the process. Despite the insane stats, Yukio claims he has the perfect counterplay, telling his team to sit back and watch the show. The martial artist casually strolls past the energy barrier, locking eyes with the absolute menace that is Hiro. Without dropping his chill vibe, he politely requests the privilege of throwing hands. Hiro just glares back, radiating pure venom. Seeing the fighters locked in the glowing deity officially kicks off the blood sport. Aura explodes from Hiro's core as he blitzes forward like a freight train, spitting out that this monk needs to shut his mouth. But Yukio is not phased, effortlessly tanking the brutal strike with his forearm. Hiro instantly snaps back, swiping a vicious backhand claw attack. As the peanut gallery watches the chaos unfold, Hiro taunts his opponent, calling him a coward who only knows how to dodge until the monk flawlessly snatches his speeding fist out of thin air. Sakuya loses his mind, cheering, hyping up the block like they already won, but Hiro just hits him with a psychotic grin while a demonic aura leaks from his body. Suddenly, the monk feels the true terrifying weight behind those strikes. Pivoting hard, Yukio unleashes a devastating palm thrust, launching the aggressor clear across the arena. The Ezra expertly hits the brakes, crouching low to absorb the shockwave. Yukinojo analyzes the crazy sequence, pointing out how the martial artist brilliantly seized the initiative and forced breathing room instantly. He admits this brawl is going to be incredibly sweaty, but Remu casually tells him to chill out. Sakuya's anxiety spikes as he spots blood, frantically screaming out to check if Shusenji's arm is shattered. Hiro's maniacal smile stretches even further tauntingly, asking how that bite from the fangs of Cadmus tasted. The horrific truth clicks in Yukio's brain. He is talking about the legendary Ares serpent. Realizing this monster literally fused with the demonic pet, it becomes obvious the beast is auto-aiming his strikes. Hiro flexes those venomous blades, promising that the nightmare is barely kicking off. Blasting forward for round 2, he screams that his pet serpent is still starving for blood. A hyperspeed hook flies right at his face. Yukio throws up a guard, but the phantom fang violently sinks its teeth into his flesh. He curses the guy as an absolute cheat in his head, realizing the enemy's agility just got a massive buff. Refusing to fold, the monk shifts his stance, flaring his chi to the max, and triggers his golden bell barrier to violently blast the freak away. Hiro goes flying backward once again. Staring at his trembling hands, Yukio connects the dots. The bad guy did not get a speed boost. His own body is actually lagging, violently nerfed by that toxic dragon venom. Wiping his chin, Hiro gives a twisted compliment about his durability. Right on cue, the system drops the lore. The Fangs of Dragon's Venom is a busted lifesteal item, letting the wielder siphon HP and infinitely scale their damage just by drawing blood, though the buff is still in its early stages. Sakuya does the mental math, panicking that if this war of attrition keeps up, the stat gap is going to become literally impossible to close. Not wasting a single second, Hiro launches himself like a missile, crashing a brutal roundhouse right into the monk's defense. With a sick smirk, he asks how the poison is treating him. With toxic dragon venom tearing through his veins and his time running out, the monk stays dead, calm, whispering a sacred chant. Hiro scoffs, claiming no prayer is going to save him from this beatdown. But Rimuru narrows her eyes. Is it just her? Or is this guy suddenly pulling in some insane god-tier energy? Yukinojo squints in pure confusion. That makes 0 sense, he mutters, trying to figure out how a non-asura is casually flexing a divine aura. The monk ignores them, his chanting growing louder. Sakuya gasps, realizing he's about to drop a highly restricted high-risk technique. Still, with his back against the wall, this crazy gamble might just pay off. He drops the final syllable, and boom, blinding gold light erupts as a massive Buddha projection spawns, blasting Hiro with a raw Kamui strike. Hiro sneers, brushing off the hit. He's never even heard of this deity, mocking Yukio for thinking a glowing statue could actually stop his onslaught. Suspended right inside the glowing construct, Yukio doesn't hold back. Wrapped in full divine armor, he rockets straight at his target. Hiro actually laughs out loud. He cannot believe this clown is trying to throw hands just because he got a shiny new armor upgrade. Sure, it takes guts, but it is the exact same suicidal playbook everyone tries. Hiro has buried a mountain of wannabes who pulled this exact stunt. These rookies always assume that packing on holy shields will somehow block the lethal bite of Cadmus. Spoiler alert, Cadmus literally snacks on divine aura like it is premium wagyu. The dragon is ready to swallow him alive, identical to the last victim. Get ready to drown in absolute despair. Hiro yells right before getting his jaw completely rocked by a brutal haymaker. Staggering back, the villain is totally stunned. Turns out, the monk bypassed the venom by using his holy aura as a filter, instantly unlocking his base speed. Before Hiro can blink, Yukio sinks a devastating roundhouse into his gut. Spitting blood, Hiro realizes it isn't just a speed glitch. The monk's raw damage output and reflexes are skyrocketing off the charts. Even while eating a vicious knee straight to the dome, Hiro smirks, convinced this is still the ultimate all-you-can-eat buffet for his beast. He gloats that the monk is about to be prime, dragon chow. But Yukio just tilts his head, completely unbothered. Snapping forward, Hiro locks onto the monk's arm, loudly claiming all that sweet holy energy for himself as he declares checkmate. The aura surges into his veins, but suddenly something feels horribly wrong. The absorbed power instantly rebels, tearing him apart from the inside. Yukio coldly stares him down, whispering that he popped the champagne way too soon. Tearing his arm out of the beast's jaws, the monk explains that Arhat energy is way too dense to just swallow, following it up with a savage backhand across the Asura's face. Hacking much, Hiro screams, absolutely losing his mind, as he demands to know why his unbeatable pet suddenly has indigestion. Yukio smirks. Whoever said I was using divine power? Calling his opponent ridiculously gullible, he casually yeets the Asura across the literal battlefield. Watching from the sidelines, Yui finally connects the dots, admitting she totally thought he was crazy for picking the Arhat class back in the day. Going down that path permanently locked him out of the Asura skill tree, shifting his entire damage scaling to pure, unfiltered karma. It is a completely broken build, but it comes with a massive catch. You have to grind good deeds literally every single day. Slip up, and that same karma will completely eat you alive. Yukio points out that a walking red flag like Hiro has zero good karma to his name. With a rap sheet full of toxic behavior, there was exactly 0% chance the villain could ever handle that kind of spiritual weight. Sakuya totally hypes him up, cheering that the monk actually pulled off the upset. Rimu is mind-blown by this hidden class meta, but Yukinojo immediately shuts down the party, warning them the fight isn't over. A slick gimmick is not enough to secure a win here. Sleeping on an Asura's true potential is a guaranteed death sentence. Scrambling to his feet, Hiro digs his heels into the dirt. He angrily mutters that his mana pool is completely tanked, making it impossible to hold his current state. Pushed into a corner, he decides to bet it all on one final desperate play. A dark, terrifying aura violently erupts from his core. Pitch-black blood hits the floor with a sickening sizzle. Yukio shouts a warning about the lethal toxicity, right as a thick, blinding smog swallows the entire arena. The monk instantly creates distance. A heavy, rhythmic booming echoes out. Jiro thinks it sounds like war drums, while Sakuya nervously hopes he is wrong. Screaming to the heavens, Hiro sacrifices the toxic dragon's blood to General Ares, demanding the god's personal spear. In a flash of corrupted light, the legendary polearm spawns right into his grip. He pledges to swing this thing until his very bones turn to ash. Rimu watches in horror, pointing out that wielding a top-tier holy relic always demands a brutal toll from the user. On top of that, it comes with a massive time limit, since mortal bodies cannot handle god-tier specs. Yukinojo clenches his fists, realizing the insane skill gap between regular players and these Asura monsters. Rimu pieces the lore together. Hiro literally just sacrificed the pet dragon that Ares originally gifted him. If the Pantheon catches onto this massive disrespect, they are going to rage. A win might earn him a pass, but if he catches a loss, the cosmic punishment is going to be absolutely horrific. Either way, the stats do not lie. A basic player surviving an Asura, packing a mythical relic, is statistically impossible. Without wasting a second, Hiro blitzes forward. Yukio braces for a close-range clash, but his eyes widen. The massive spear has literally glitched out of existence. Playing it safe, the monk leaps backward to exit the aggro range, but a phantom blade slices right across his cheek anyway. Smirking Hiro snaps his fingers and triggers an instant detonation. A massive shockwave rips through the air, completely shredding the monk's gear. Breathing heavy, Yukio admits that if he had not clutch cast a shield chant, he would be absolute toast. Making things infinitely worse, the weapon is heavily coated in the exact same lethal debuff as the dragon's venom. The game interface violently flashes thanks to the insane acid damage from the blood of Ares. The monk's cloak just got hit with a 50% defense penalty. Going for the kill screen, Hiro dashes in for a fatal sweep that Yukio dodges by a literal hair. But out of nowhere, toxic blood spikes erupt from the Asura's back, tracking the monk like heat-seeking missiles. Yukio's eyes go wide as he realizes this boss can launch projectiles from anywhere, not just his hands. Capitalizing on the shock, Hero unleashes an absolutely relentless flurry of god-tier strikes. "Let's see you dodge this," Hero snarls. Wicked blades forged from pure Ares blood erupt from his knuckles. Yukio's heart sinks. This guy is untouchable. His movements are practically a blur. Every single hit Yukio absorbs shreds his gear to ribbons. And yeah, his karmic aura cushions the blows a bit, but the raw power is still insane. If those strikes weren't nerfed, he'd already be a goner. Realizing he desperately needs breathing room, he swiftly sidesteps a lethal punch, throwing a desperate palm strike right at Hero to force him back. They lock eyes. The monk's lips start moving, dropping a heavy Buddhist mantra, while weaving a glowing seal over his open hand. Hero scoffs, mocking him for hitting his absolute limit so fast, warning him not to. Fool himself into thinking running away would actually save his skin. Ignoring the trash talk, the monk unleashes his silent Dharma chant. Out of nowhere, massive energy materializes right over Hero's head, violently slamming him down onto his knees into the dirt. This sacred enchantment is designed to completely purify and obliterate any dark interference, instantly draining the toxic effects of the poisonous dragon's blood. Gritting his teeth, Hero pieces it together. The monk was plotting to lock down his movements with a hex and sneak in for a close combat strike. Bursting with dark energy, Hero blasts his crimson blood outward, calling the strategy straight up pathetic. Sensing the danger, Sakuya instantly flares her aura, screaming at Shusang to watch his back. The monk barely ducks in time, the razor-sharp attack slicing right through his straw hat. He sweats, realizing he was inches away from death. But suddenly the glowing goddess manifests right in Sakuya's face, coldly declaring that rule breakers get heavily penalized. Without warning, brutal flames engulf the man, leaving him screaming in pure agony. Yoi hysterically shrieks her husband's name, rushing over to spam her healing magic. Watching closely, Sakuya notices the fire has finally fizzled out, but it brutally wiped out 15% of his entire life force. Hero smirks, claiming the guy would be a total corpse right now if his team hadn't totally meddled, though he admits the system's penalty handled the job perfectly. Taking mental notes, the monk realizes throwing hands up close is basically suicide, but Hero zoning him out with those long-range blood arrows makes it 10 times worse. Checking his tank, Yukio calculates he's only got around 3 minutes of stamina left, leaving him zero options but to risk it all right now. Fed up, Hero barks at him to stop stalling, unleashing a devastating offensive and straight up claiming an early W. As the monk intensely funnels pure karmic energy through his veins. Whispering that all dharmas must unite, he mentally cycles through the sacred Archon ranks, from the celestial sight to the wisdom gaze, peeking at the Dharma and Buddha visions. Realizing this is his only shot, he violently cracks open his Dharma eye. His pupil morphs instantly into a radiant spinning Buddhist crest. A lethal blood spear rockets toward his face at Mach speed, but thanks to his newly activated vision, his own reaction time gets a massive buff. Still, he knows this overpowered state burns out crazy fast, so he desperately scans for a weak spot. He spots the glitch that massive spear doesn't actually pack the heavy divine juice he thought it did. The real trap. That sneaky blood projectile from earlier is silently creeping up right behind him. Yukio smirks, finally cracking the villain's cheat code. He literally catches the front spear barehanded, while casually blocking the backstab arrows with a solid wall of divine armor. Utterly stunned, Hero can't fathom how his perfect combo got read like a children's book. The monk dryly asks if this weak toothpick was supposed to be the almighty blood spear, before effortlessly crushing the weapon into mere glowing dust. Hero loses his mind, screaming that it's physically impossible. Meanwhile, Yukinojo is left jaw-dropped, wondering how anyone could block. Microscopic, razor-thin blood threads. Rimu points out the obvious that glowing eye basically gives him straight-up wall hacks to see the invisible. Hype floods the squad as Sakuya cheers, hyping up the fact that they might actually pull off this underdog win. But the monk already had a genius counterplay, cooking for Ares' suffocating aura. Yukio calmly explains that marinating in that much toxic villainous energy is obviously going to completely rot a person's brain with dark, twisted thoughts, and he's about to hit the factory reset button on all of it, weaving another complex hand seal. Triggered by the disrespect, Hero furiously snaps back, demanding to know why predicting a few moves matters at all. After all, his broken passive ability lets him puppeteer anyone who even gets a drop of his divine blood on them. Observing closely, Rimu drops some lore, noting that the godly energy pulsing through his veins is totally unbalanced. Plus, since the liquid is so incredibly thin, it bypasses standard armor like a hot knife through butter. She nervously wonders how the monk plans to survive this guaranteed death trap. Hero flashes a maniacal grin, daring the monk to try his best since he's totally cornered. With a flick of his wrist, he spawns a terrifying swarm of crimson projectiles and launches the devastating barrage straight at his target. Unfazed Yukio just flares up his Dharma vision to max power. Instantly, Hero's legs give out, crashing hard into the dirt. Violent spasms take over, as mind-bending agony shreds through his nervous system. Gasping for air, he curses, begging to know what kind of cheat code this monk just activated, while Yukio effortlessly deflects the rain of deadly needles using a massive, glowing barrier. Without skipping a beat, the monk launches into an insanely complex ancient chant about the infinite cycle of samsara. Spotting the danger, Remu frantically screams at Hiro to watch out for that cursed eye, seeing the raw, divine magic swirling violently inside it. It completely renders every single attack useless. Catching on to her obvious shot, calling Jiro aggressively, barks out, accusing her of blatantly backseat gaming and illegally interfering with the one-on-one duel. Floating above, Athena shoots him a deeply annoyed side-eye, officially declaring that outburst as her absolute final warning. Outraged, Jiro screams about the double standards his guy got instantly nuked. So why does the opponent only get a slap on the wrist? Sakuya quickly tells him to shut his mouth and stay focused. They need to keep their eyes glued to the masterclass on how Yukio is about to secure this epic dub. Channeling every ounce of his chi, the monk condenses absolute power into his glowing palms to lock in the seal. Too arrogant to accept backup, Hiro furiously rejects the sideline coaching, but then a terrifying realization completely freezes him. He looks closely at the glowing aura and instantly recognizes the forbidden incantation. It's the ultimate sutra of the wrathful deity Fudo Myo. Furious and practically foaming at the mouth, he screams insults at the monk for pulling such a dirty trick. Unbothered, Yukio just keeps dropping the heavy spiritual bars, completely ignoring the tantrum. He casually thinks to himself how this epic spell is basically day one tutorial stuff at the temple. But make no mistake, it wasn't a weak move. Quite the reverse, actually becoming a living vessel for the raging fire. God literally skyrockets his damage output. There's just one massive catch to this overpowered buff. It forces him to stand totally still and chant for over 30 agonizing seconds without losing focus, even for a microsecond. Pulling this off mid-fight is basically the ultimate flex, delivering maximum humiliation. Rather than just letting his opponent chant, Hiro literally slices his own arms open, morphing his fresh wounds into a barrage of crimson projectiles. Pools of crimson splatter the floor and actually start crawling around. Remu watches, totally convinced he has lost his mind, but Hiro knows exactly what he is doing. Shatter the seal, and he completely shuts down that annoying chant. He snaps, screaming at the bald guy to burn in hell on repeat. Meanwhile, Yukio calculates the situation. Locking down dragon blood demands a massive dose of holy energy. But thanks to his awakened Dharma vision, every single strike Hiro throws is absolutely worthless, failing to leave even a microscopic dent. The blood user screeches for his enemy to drop dead, agonizing over the fact that he only has 15 seconds on the clock. But honestly, the holy man is bleeding from his damn eyeballs, clearly pushed beyond his breaking point. Hiro grits his teeth, desperate to crack the guy's insane concentration. Suddenly, a massive, terrifying deity manifests right behind the chanter. Yohei flashes a confident smirk as the countdown ticks down to just 9 seconds. Remu lets out a heavy breath, while Yukinojo violently mutters curses under his breath. On the flip side, Sakuya and Jiro are already hyping up the impending win, as the holy man keeps pushing through the chant, hammering out the very last syllable. A massive shockwave of pure energy instantly slams into Hiro, shredding his body and dropping him out cold. Gathering whatever breath he has left, the victor internally sighs in relief, amazed he actually clutched the win before his mystical vision totally burned out. Athena's voice booms across the stadium, declaring the first massive victory goes to the Alliance. Shusenji Yukio officially secures round 1. Back on the sidelines, Remu works her healing spells over Hiro's shattered body. She softly checks in on him, but the defeated fighter just stares at the dirt, absolutely crushed. The guy is drowning in total despair. Remu desperately pleads with him to keep it together, but a sinister presence suddenly creeps up right behind his back. 2 fully geared phantoms demand his attention, brutally roasting him for taking a huge loss in Athena's fake tournament, calling the whole vibe totally pathetic. Hiro weakly stammers out an apology, but the specters viciously command the loser to zip it. They drop a soul-crushing message straight from his dad. The old man is beyond disgusted with his performance, claiming he should feel blessed to face the edge of their blades as a penalty. Without skipping a beat, the offspring of Ares brutally lash Hiro's back, mercilessly thrashing him. Watching this mess, Sakuya questions if the dude would seriously go to such insane lengths just to torture his personal proxy. The ghostly enforcers coldly announce that this beating is the absolute final ounce of mercy their boss will ever hand out before fading into thin air. Broken and bruised, Hiro just chokes out Suzumi's name, swearing on his life that he will totally slaughter him next time. Stepping up, Yukinojo mockingly claps back that there absolutely will not be a do-over, promising to drag every single one of them through hell. He unhooks a massive, terrifying scythe, practically frothing at the mouth to watch them roast in the underworld's endless flames. Sakuya shoots him a dead serious glare, stepping up to take the heat. Yohei quickly drops some lore, explaining that this edgelord is literally the champion of the Grim Reaper, meaning his whole moveset runs on ghost energy and spirit manipulation. which could totally play into Sakuya's hands. The swordsman smirks, promising to squeeze every drop of potential out of this matchup, smoothly sliding the designated item right into his stash. Receiving a quick fist bump of luck from the holy man, and Jiro, our boy, confidently strides straight into the fighting pit. Mentally prepping, he runs through the classic samurai playbook, specifically an aura technique designed to completely lock down targets from across the room. The catch: it requires a massive charge-up sequence, so the game plan is simple. Blitz the enemy, bridge the gap in a millisecond, and unleash an absolute tornado of strikes, giving the Reaper zero breathing room to counter. Once he exposes a fatal opening, he will sink his blade deep and wrap this whole thing up. Yeah, it sounds super basic, but it is undeniably top-tier strategy. Plus, if everything goes south, he has a slick backup strategy chilling in his back pocket. The goddess commands both challengers to square up and kicks off the duel. Yukinojo instantly rushes in, hurling a chaotic storm of tormented spirits straight from his weapon. Our swordsman calculates the angle, ready to activate a hyperspeed dash to phase right through the ghostly crossfire and analyze the guy's combat rhythm. With a single fluid motion, he cleaves through the phantom barrage, leaving his opponent totally shell-shocked as he materializes directly at his 6. The edgy Reaper mocks all blade wielders as brain-dead meatheads completely oblivious until the strike connects. But Sakuya's eyes widen in absolute disbelief when his supposedly perfect hit connects with dead air, realizing a shield of phantoms had flawlessly guarded his opponent's blind spot. A tidal wave of malicious ghosts swarms the samurai, while his target smoothly glides backward, slicing the apparitions like butter. Sakuya guns it straight for the scythe wielder. The dark fighter arrogantly taunts him right before getting bisected cleanly down the middle by a brutal katana swing. Plot twist: the divided enemy violently cackles, bragging that physical weapons are utterly useless against a pure entity rocking an intangible form. Sakuya abruptly pivots, tracking the true presence, and propels himself forward to deliver another heavy execution. The ghost boy just howls with maniacal laughter, screaming that resistance is a joke, and ordering him to take his defeat like an obedient dog. Claiming to boast an endless ammo clip of souls, he mocks the warrior, stating he could swing that sword for 80 years straight and still barely make a dent in his army. He gets under Sakuya's skin, whispering that a so-called master who cannot even track his true target is totally worthless. Honing his zen, our hero realizes there is only one play left: trigger the ultimate charge sequence. But the Grim Reaper immediately shuts that down, completely denying him the cast time. Forced on the defensive, Sakuya throws wild counters into every corner of the arena, only to get swallowed by another devastating spectral blast. Watching the chaos, Rimu points out the insane power gap between a divine champion and a standard-issue human. Hiro bitterly mumbles that the guy just caught a lucky break, prompting the magic caster to fiercely remind him that a regular blade user stepping up as a faction boss is statistically unheard of. Shifting her gaze, she zeroes in on Yohei standing right at the front lines, catching a wildly different vibe from him. It blows her mind that despite her partner catching a massive beating, she stays absolutely stone cold. It practically screams that they are sitting on a game-changing secret weapon. Back in the pit, Sakuya shreds through a rogue phantom before throwing himself into a tactical backstep. The shadow boss spams another wave of cursed ammo, loudly questioning if the warrior is cooking up some secret move. Rimu screams at the top of her lungs for him to watch his 6, while the champion of the underworld visibly flinches in pure shock. Sakuya absolutely shreds everything in his way, triggering his Leap of the 8 Vessels technique. Yukinojo is left completely clueless, wondering what just hit him. Back when the 6th Shelter first dropped the military, and top-tier players teamed up on a massive manhunt for monster breeding grounds, that's when they stumbled upon an abandoned mine right outside the safe zone, swarming with beasts birthing the world's very first dungeon. Initially, it felt like a total cakewalk since only low-level trash mobs were crawling out. But the second they actually stepped inside that cavern, the game changed completely. The monster types, the sheer swarm of them, and their power scaling were off the charts. The cave had mutated into its own twisted ecosystem, and lurking at the absolute bottom, a massive level 80 arachnid boss. Back in that era, humanity stood literally zero chance against a raid boss like that. To buy time for everyone's escape, Sakuya Mukoshima stepped up as the ultimate decoy, dragging the monster's aggro deep into the darkness. Nobody actually knows what went down in the shadows. But the crazy part, exactly 3 days later, blood-curdling screeches echoed from the abyss as the spider shrieked in absolute agony. Right on cue, the entire dungeon structure started caving in on itself. Strolling out through the collapsing boulders without a single scratch was Sakuya. The cheat code skill that saved his life back then, you guessed it, the Leap of the 8 Vessels. It's an insanely broken technique that lets the user chain together 8 back-to-back dashes. With every single jump, his velocity multiplies exponentially. Sakuya calculates that he burned 3 charges just to dodge that previous strike. Now triggering his 4th dash, he explodes off the pavement, rocketing straight for Yukinojo's throat. The S-rank Hades proxy is totally baffled by this insane speed buff. Sakuya's blade instantly atomizes a wandering soul, and guessing his enemy's trajectory, he fires off leap number 5. The katana closes in at Mach speed but just slices through another decoy phantom. Instantly tracking him, Sakuya spots his target airborne, triggering jump 6 to deliver a vicious aerial strike. Yukinojo crashes back down to the dirt, but Sakuya is right on his heels, burning dash number 7. Slamming his blade into the earth with bone-crushing force, Sakuya realizes that by channeling the raw inherited willpower of the ancient hero, he has totally wiped out the ghost army around them. His win condition is simple now: just keep swinging. He lunges forward for another round. Metal screams as his katana deadlocks against the demonic scythe. Sakuya smirks, realizing Yukinojo's summoning speed can't even dream of matching his movement. And if he just forces a brutal close-quarters brawl right here, the legendary hero's inherited will is basically a guaranteed victory ticket. Watching from the sidelines, Rimu points out that this absolutely explains how he's dominated the Guildmaster throne for years. He might not have an official S-rank badge, but that ridiculous damage output says otherwise. Now, there are tons of wild theories about how the towers actually spawned, but the internet's favorite theory claims these structures are literally human history and ancient myths physically manifesting in reality. History and myth are tangled up so tight you can't rip them apart, and if mythology gets repped by omnipotent gods, then human history gets repped by the legendary heroes. But here's the kicker: grabbing a hero's willpower and getting drafted by a literal god are two entirely different games. Scoring a god's blessing just requires you to slaughter the competition, but grabbing a hero's legacy, that strictly requires insane RNG, and Sakuya's luck stat is definitely maxed out. Yukinojo scoffs openly, mocking Sakuya for thinking a melee brawl was an instant win button. Dropping the cold hard truth some mid-tier sword isn't putting a dent in the literal scythe of Hades. Sakuya admits the Deathbringer weapon looks intimidating as hell, but he still holds the upper hand in attack range and mobility. Plus, since that oversized farming tool is a divine tier artifact, a fragile human body can't actually spam its max power without glitching out. If Yukinojo just swings wildly, ignoring his spatial limits, he's basically handing out free openings. Sakuya squares up his stance, roasting the kid by saying Hades totally forgot to drop a tutorial on how to use that thing. Yukinojo screams absolute cap, only to immediately get violently impaled straight through the chest. Sakuya casually mentions he totally expected a teleport dodge, but too bad for him that was jump number 8. Jiro hypes up from the back, screaming that it's good game, but Yoi shuts that down instantly. The boss music hasn't stopped yet. Yukinojo suddenly erupts into maniacal laughter, taunting Sakuya's smug "I just won" expression. It practically cracks him up. Sakuya's brain blue screens for a second. Wait, does this guy's hack ability seriously not have a cooldown timer? Yukinojo smirks, dropping a bomb. Whoever said I was limited to just swapping with ghost bodies? Suddenly, Sakuya grips his own chest. A blinding surge of pain hits Sakuya's heart. Well, this is trash, he grunts violently, backstepping to create distance. A neon system prompt flashes in his vision. Target locked, Mark of Hades applied. Sakuya curses his own sloppiness. He is absolutely floored that Yukinojo literally phased his own flesh and blood into a spectral state to straight up ghost physical damage. Take 4 of those marks, and your soul gets drafted as my personal minion. Yukinojo gloats. He promises Sakuya that he just blew his one and only shot at winning. Sakuya's mind races, crunching the tactical data. Rushing in means risking another deadly touch debuff. But playing passive, the Phantom Army is just gonna swarm and drown him. Talk about being stuck between a rock and a hard place. The worst part, his trump card, the 8-step dash, is currently locked behind a cooldown timer. Yukinojo barks his name out loud, giving him props for his skills, but ruthlessly reminding him that he's still just a fragile NPC. Sakuya can't even deny it. Shifting into a spiritual state absolutely nukes a player's energy pool, making them insanely vulnerable to magical burst damage. But acting exactly like a roaming ghost, this guy was completely immune to physical damage. He lunged straight for our swordsman, but Sakuya ripped a quick slash and instantly backed away. Not bad on the speed, but honestly, still too slow. Yukinojo taunted effortlessly, shattering Sakuya's defense with a brutal strike. Boom, another seal of Hades locked onto Sakuya. Running is pointless, bro, Yukinojo cackled, stalking closer like a predator. Hit 4 of those marks, and your literal insides erupt into a soul-scorching hellfire. Your flesh melts off the bone, and your soul gets chained up as his mindless zombie forever. Brutal. Sakuya shot him a total death glare. Meanwhile, Yukinojo's body morphed into this terrifying skeletal phantom and started turning invisible. Realizing he messed up, our swordsman cursed loudly, amnesia acting up. You totally forgot my revenant shade, the villain sneered, tagging him with yet another mark. Sakuya swung his blade desperately to create distance, but Yukinojo just laughed at the pathetic attempt. The swordsman vaulted as far back as physically possible. The villain instantly read his mind. Sakuya was trying to stall out the clock, praying the curse marks would just expire once the magic dried up. But that was pure copium. Yukinojo could chill in his ghost mode for another 3 whole minutes. One more touch, and 𝚎𝚅 was totally cooked. 𝚎𝚅 took a deep breath, dead set on his next play. Yukinojo just smirked, watching the swordsman foolishly charge up his blade's aura. He literally could not fathom why 𝚎𝚅 would leave himself so wide open. Popping his revenant shade, he gloated, "Time to join the afterlife, buddy." But suddenly the katana ripped from its scabbard, absolutely surging with raw lightning. Yukinojo rushed in, convinced it was game over, since physical energy usually passes right through him. Big mistake. 𝚎𝚅 unleashed a flawless spinning slash, flashing back to a secret weapon his wife handed him. He had actually tied that exact sacred cloth to his hilt just for a clutch moment like this. This stuff was legit steeped in holy temple water, sun-baked in literal paradise, and heavily blessed by a high-tier cleric. Its entire job description: deleting evil spirits from existence, and slicing straight through raw souls. This was its absolute peak form. Watching from the sidelines, Rimu realized that just like Jiraiya cooked up heavy brain strategies against the samurai, 𝚎𝚅's wife had flawlessly pre-planned this counter. With one swing, 𝚎𝚅 shredded every phantom in the room. "Cool trick, but it is totally useless," Yukinojo mocked. "I already slapped the 4th mark on you. Get ready to roast in demonic hellfire and become my personal puppet." But instead of crumbling, our swordsman stood his ground, gripping his katana tight. Yukinojo was genuinely baffled. "Did you seriously think I would just stand here and let you take my soul?" 𝚎𝚅 smirked. "Tough break, man. Torching my flesh honestly just shaved off the dead weight. Now, my strikes are insanely fast." Panicking, the villain spammed every single ghost he had to block the attack. None of this made sense. 𝚎𝚅 was not supposed to hit this hard, while taking literal soul damage. Then, the horrific realization hit him. The villain screamed. 𝚎𝚅 was perfectly timing the massive cooldown gap for his ultimate leap of the 8 vessels. Way too late to figure that out, 𝚎𝚅 roared, violently shredding through every obstacle like paper. He blitzed forward, pureed a whole wave of spirits, and practically teleported behind Yukinojo. The panicked Asura tried to phase out into his phantom state, but 𝚎𝚅 interrupted. "Before you even try stealing my soul," he launched himself, dicing up a fresh batch of phantoms. "I am ending your life right here." Blinking right onto his blind spot, the swordsman cleanly cleaved Yukinojo completely in half. "A single slash like that will not put me down," the villain choked out. 𝚎𝚅 just glared. "If one cut did not do the job, then I will just keep hacking until you drop," he screamed, unleashing an absolute tornado of strikes. Beaten to a pulp, Yukinojo finally blacked out. The swordsman clicked his katana back into its sheath. That is a wrap. Meanwhile, outside the arena, Makai was literally frying some random dude with high voltage. Having completely wiped the floor with his opponents, he muttered, "What an embarrassment to the Asura name." He then signaled for Sora to hurry up, complaining that this whole event was getting massively boring. Back inside the ring, the crowd was going absolutely wild for 𝚎𝚅. Jiro was hyping him up like crazy, but the monk's face dropped. "No, this is terrible." The villain's dark aura was suddenly spiking to toxic levels. It was infinitely worse than anything he flexed before. "I am not done. I just need one more shot," Yukinojo muttered, brokenly repeating himself over and over. Channeling his remaining cursed energy, gigantic bone hands violently ripped open a rift in midair. "Man, my older brother is putting on a seriously pathetic show." 𝚎𝚅 braced his blade, totally freaked out by whatever was coming next. Yukinojo started sobbing for another chance, but the voice from the rift coldly snapped. "You cannot carry a fight with just flashy gimmicks. At the end of the day, raw power is all that matters. But whatever, I can fix this." Without hesitation, the new entity instantly nuked Yukinojo into dust, casually declaring, "Both you and the enemy are getting deleted today." 𝚎𝚅 stood frozen, wondering if this absolute menace was the real, final boss version of the Hades Asura. The entire crowd outside was losing their minds over this grotesque nightmare. Makai glanced over his shoulder, smirking. "Okay, now we are actually getting somewhere." The massive creature stomped toward the swordsman. "The absolute first thing I did after ascending to an Asura was zero out my own older brother. Since then, the body count is literally uncountable. Not that it matters. Once they flatline, they just become my personal loot drops, and you are about to join my collection," the monster growled, shotgunning a barrage of cursed spirits straight at 𝚎𝚅. Boom, the Hades seal ticked right back to 1. 𝚎𝚅 was shook, realizing the curse stack never actually reset. Worse, his signature leap of the 8 vessels was still hardlocked on cooldown. Was this really how he gets a game over? Parrying the endless wave of ghouls, 𝚎𝚅 honestly felt a weird sense of nostalgia washing over him in this unwinnable fight. Total déjà vu hitting him right now. Absolute zero damage. That armored paladin straight up bolted from the massive arachnid, screaming for backup. A giant spiked leg swiped at 𝚎𝚅, missing by inches. He gritted his teeth, retreating wasn't an option. "Nobody dies today, I'm holding the line," he roared. The beast slammed its massive bulk right in front of the fleeing squad. "Hold up," 𝚎𝚅 yelled, panic spiking as he realized he was miles out of position. He desperately needed to pull the monster's aggro. Only one huge issue: this thing's armor was basically tank metal. Every strike just bounced right off. Scanning for any kind of weak spot, his eyes locked onto a strange blade jutting out of the beast. With zero hesitation, he chucked his own katana straight at it. Bullseye. The steel clanged hard against the embedded scabbard on the creature's skull. The monster shrieked in agony, and Sakuya pumped his fist. The abomination snarled. "Yeah, look at me, ugly," the swordsman taunted, baiting the nightmare directly toward him. All 8 legs blurred into a frenzy. It lunged, aiming a lethal strike right at his spine. Sakuya dove across the dirt paths, hitting the ground hard but springing back to his feet in a flash. Pure, unadulterated fury burned in the beast's many eyes as it cornered its prey. Breathing heavily, Sakuya realized he was entirely out of gas. Hey, no regrets. Going down swinging meant those villagers got out alive. Still, a bitter thought crept in: if only he had just a fraction more power. He could have changed everything. Suddenly, a commanding voice pierced the chaos, ordering him to stand his ground. A massive winged warrior snatched him midair. "I've got you," the mysterious savior declared. Staring death right in the face, Sakuya realized he was looking at an absolute myth walking among mortals. This was the ultimate grandmaster who trained the elite warlords, the legendary Karasu Tengu. The truth slammed into him. Portals didn't just spit out nightmarish monsters. They dropped literal mythical icons into their world too. The winged god whisked him away into a hidden cavern. Catching his breath, Sakuya dropped a massive thank you before asking who exactly he was dealing with. The ancient spirit didn't waste any time dropping his lore. Turns out a fallen general had one final request before crossing over. Now Karasu was hunting down a worthy soul to carry on that warrior's legacy. The vessel for that legacy, a mythical god-tier katana known as the Kumogiri, and that giant 8-legged freak outside. It was a chaotic yokai, accidentally revived by the sword's raw power. Blinded by pure rage, the beast had ambushed Karasu. In a desperate counter, the spirit jammed the legendary blade straight into its skull. The result, a brutal stalemate where neither could finish the other off. But then Karasu spotted Sakuya. Watching this random kid lay his life on the line for total strangers, that sheer willpower proved everything. Karasu knew right then this human was the missing puzzle piece. Teaming up was their only shot. Together, they could slaughter the yokai and reclaim the general's sacred steel. Sakuya gripped the spirit's hand hard. "Let's crack some skulls." From that second forward, the mythical Tengu became his personal sensei. Under that hardcore mentorship, Sakuya absorbed the ancient combat arts of legends. But here was the brutal reality check: his human body just couldn't keep up. He flat out failed to unlock the general's full arsenal. Out of 6 god-level techniques, Sakuya barely secured 3. But his winged mentor smirked 3 was plenty to squash a bug. What followed was a bloodbath of epic proportions. Triggering his newly acquired ultimate move, the 8-boat leap Sakuya completely overwhelmed the beast's defenses. A flawless, blinding slash tore right through the monster's head. The battle ended. Earning the Kumogiri Homaru, Sakuya swore a blood oath. If he ever crossed paths with a prodigy who truly deserved this divine power, he would hand over the blade without hesitation. He'd pass the torch. Snapping back to the current nightmare, Sakuya channels every ounce of his aura into that exact same steel, violently shredding the demonic horde swarming him. "Never for a single second did I think I deserved this," he mutters. His blade dances, ripping through wave after wave of shadow beasts. They explode into dust only to instantly respawn. Gripping the hilt tight, Sakuya knows he has to tap into the sword's true forbidden magic. The neon green steel slides out, practically humming with energy. Dying in this hellhole, not an option. He still has a legendary promise to keep. He owes the spirit who saved his life. Taking a flawless stance, Sakuya unleashes a 360-degree whirlwind of destruction. Up in the stands, the crowd's jaws drop. Jiro squints, sweating bullets. Is a glowing sword actually enough to kill that boss? Beside him, Rimu shakes her head. It's carrying a hero's soul, sure. But he's just a guy, she whispers. Mortal steel doesn't even scratch a literal deity. Down in the pit, Hades flexes dark energy swirling around his monstrous form. He smirks, mistaking the katana's intense glow for Sakuya's pure terror. "Rip him apart," the god commands. A tidal wave of ghouls rushes in, but Sakuya violently blasts them back with an eruption of blinding white mana. His mind races back. The moment the ancient general first butchered that giant arachnid with this blade, it permanently absorbed the ability to absolutely vaporize dark magic. He swings hard, intercepting the demonic shockwaves. Still, this was a massive gamble. Was it enough to drop the actual lord of the underworld? Suddenly, bam! A cursed arrow buries itself deep into his thigh. Ignoring the agonizing pain, Sakuya locks in. All or nothing, he roars. He forces every single drop of his remaining mana into the ancient weapon. "Scream for me, Kumogiri." Boom! Dozens of razor-sharp wind blades explode outward, completely shredding the front line of ghouls. The demons brace for a weak hit, only to get instantly atomized. The arena itself starts cracking under the sheer pressure of Sakuya's tornado slashes. Hades raises an eyebrow, respecting the hustle. But the dark god just casually conjures a massive transmutation glyph. Cute effort. Still garbage compared to me, he taunts. Sakuya goes all in with a devastating uppercut swing, crashing his raging tempest straight into the glowing shield. You seriously think a mortal toy can make a god bleed? Hades bellows as the arena shakes. He's about to vaporize every last ounce of hope. A razor-sharp gale tears toward the mystic rune, while Hades narrows his glowing eyes, totally clueless about the high-pitched ringing filling the air. Rimu slaps his hands over his ears, and the rest of the crew instantly follows suit. Suddenly, a massive web of cracks splinters across one of the glowing alchemy rings. Even the god of the underworld himself has to block out the deafening screech, watching helplessly as his devastating strike completely fizzles out. Sakuya smirks, flexing that while the bony creep might tank the physical slice of the Kumogiri, Himaru dodging invisible sonic shockwaves is literally impossible. He launches himself forward like a bullet. The legendary blade lives up to its hype, roaring through the air with the vicious snarl of a wild beast. That sonic roar absolutely scrambles the brain's motor skills. Hades is already stumbling, leaving his guard wide open for a savage counterattack. The Underworld King scoffs, realizing the auditory trick was meant to lock him down. But popping off now, huge mistake. Thanks to his god-tier status, the sword's 20-second stun gets violently nerfed down to a mere 10 seconds. Hades thrives on that false sense of security, waiting for the exact millisecond his prey gets cocky. Meanwhile, Sakuya is practically redlining, knowing he has to push his agility to the absolute limit. If he does not hit top gear right this second, it is game over. He bets everything on this final rush, but cold dread washes over him, as the god's hollow eyes lock directly onto his soul. The paralysis is already snapping. Pushing through pure panic, Sakuya sprints headfirst into the danger zone, mentally cursing his luck, while Jiro screams out, praying the guy actually survives this reckless dive. Not on my watch, the deity growls, casually swatting away the incoming lethal wind. Sakuya freezes in absolute horror. He is a fraction of a second too late. Hades coldly announces his execution. Invisible strings wrap around Sakuya, violently hijacking his own body. Crushed inside a colossal demonic grip, he can do nothing but listen to the monstrous echoing laughter bouncing off the walls. The deity mocks him, branding the samurai as nothing more than a brand new toy for his collection. The dark energy surges wildly as the terrifying fourth seal of the underworld cracks open. But plot twist. The squad on the outside wasn't just sitting around making popcorn. A massive aura flares up as Yoei refuses to let his comrade get dusted without a fight. Out of nowhere, Athena manifests right in their faces, projecting pure boss-level authority and laying down the absolute law: mortal scrubs do not crash a god-tier brawl. Bam! A blinding flash of high-voltage plasma obliterates the tension. Athena spins around, totally baffled, while Rimu catches that familiar electric hum vibrating through her bones. Is some crazy rogue trying to shatter the dome from the outside? Impossible. The big boss is literally standing guard. The sky turns pitch black, choking the area in shadows, until a deafening sonic boom shatters the silence. A raw, chaotic force rips through the atmosphere like wet tissue paper. Athena barely has a microsecond to look completely shook, before the overwhelming barrage literally wipes her from existence. Rimu stammers, trying to process if the indestructible dome actually just shattered. And wait, was that the boss's signature lightning? Hiro furiously points into the dust cloud, screaming at her to focus. Through the smoke, Sora is going absolutely feral, channeling pure voltage into the crackling wall, praying the clock has not run out. Rimu's jaw drops. She recognizes the legendary Thunder Lance. That weapon is strictly VIP exclusive to the commander alone. Instantly, a shimmering golden bell dome and a massive glowing aegis materialize to tank the lethal damage aimed at Sakuya. Shusenge hypes the squad up, yelling that the glass is officially broken and it is time to jump in. Yoei completely backs the play, shouting that they are staking everything on this kid. Sora winds up for a second hypercharged pitch. Eat this, you overgrown fossil. He unleashes a blinding spear of pure electricity straight at the underworld boss. Hades spits out a furious curse. He aggressively taunts the boy, bragging that shattering some glass does not change reality. His old man is already dancing on the god's twisted strings. A massive bedrock pillar violently erupts right under Sora's boots, giving him the ultimate launchpad. Jiro screams at him to blast off, and our boy shoots him, a quick nod of respect before launching into the sky. Diving straight at the colossal skeletal limb, he creates a blinding flash. The deity barely gets out a confused grunt before his massive arm gets surgically sliced clean in half. The god recoils, clutching his severed stump in absolute shock, while Sakuya plummets to the dirt, still trapped in the amputated claw. The entire battlefield goes dead silent as the samurai violently forces the dead giant's fingers open. Coughing up blood, he hits them with the hardest line: nobody checks out of this life unless he signs the permission slip. The crippled deity loses his mind, shrieking insults at the absolute audacity. Sora mentally tips his hat to his dad for surviving the impossible, but honestly, this giant bony cosplayer is not even the main boss right now. The actual red flag is the mysterious powerhouse casually dropping nukes from outside the cage. Out of all the nightmarish monsters he fought since crawling out of the abyss, this unknown sniper is easily the most cracked. Enter Makai, dropping onto the scene with zero hesitation. But things are seriously sketchy. His high-voltage nuke inexplicably did zero damage to the target. Even crazier, the enemy basically parried the insane electric surge like it was a minor static shock. The math absolutely was not mathing. Sparks and stray plasma bolts are literally chewing up the terrain. Sora aggressively shakes his head, getting lost in his own thoughts during a deathmatch is a one-way ticket to the grave. Step 1. Absolutely fold the guy standing right in front of him. Makai flashes a twisted, hyped-up smile at the chaos, while Hero desperately screams his name across the wasteland. Hero declares open season. With the magic cage shattered into pixels, those ridiculous fighting restrictions are officially tossed out the window. He immediately starts trash-talking the shiny-headed enemy. Revving up his engines, he launches back into the meat grinder for round 2. Hanging back, Rimu furrows her brows, super suspicious as to why her notoriously strict commander is just watching the show. Since Hero is basically going feral right now, it all clicks. The big guy is deliberately using this absolute bloodbath as a twisted stress test for the new kid's potential. No way is she letting the boys have all the fun. She manifests her heavy-duty buckler in a flash of light and aggressively barks out Iwagaya's name across the crossfire. She roasts him for chilling on the sidelines like some spectator. Iwagaya shoots back an icy glare, telling her to stay in her lane, while dropping some edgy lore about how true phantom killers always lurk in the shadows until the exact millisecond to secure the kill. Not having any of it, Rimu snaps at Shiraya, roasting him for whining about a missing limb and ordering him back into the trenches. The one-armed warrior scoffs aggressively, stating he didn't need a cheerleader to tell him to do his job. His terrifying aura violently flares up around his surviving fist. Dropping a bone-chilling line about death coming to collect its dues, he vaults straight into the madness. Meanwhile, a swarm of shadowy ghouls aggressively zeroes in on Sora's position. He tosses the ultimate responsibility of guarding his dad to the veteran, getting a solid thumbs up from Jiro. Unleashing pure kinetic force into the dirt, he violently erupts a massive bedrock fortress right behind his spine. Now totally off the leash, Sora cracks his knuckles. His mind goes to a very dark place. If any of these freaks even breathe in his father's direction, he is going to turn them into absolute dust. Hero and the monk are practically trading blows at warp speed when Hero's eyes suddenly widen. Out of nowhere, Sora crashes the party yelling, "You're up first, buddy." Hero barely brings up the Fang of Cadmus to block, totally caught off guard by the kid's glitch-like speed. But our boy completely shatters his guard, delivering a brutal roundhouse that launches Hero across the battlefield. Remu's jaw straight up drops. Watching Hero get yeeted into the stratosphere, she mentally facepalms, baffled that the dude got one-shotted. Meanwhile, Sora tosses a quick glance at 𝚤𝚎𝚘𝚖, ordering him to handle the phantom mob. The monk instantly drops into a prayer stance, unleashing a massive wave of golden karma energy that totally vaporizes the spirits. Remu is losing her mind watching this, realizing Sharia's ghostly summons are getting completely hard-countered. It's an absolute mismatch. Desperate, she hurls her heavy-duty Valkyrie shield straight at his dome, but Sora, he just snatches it out of the air, one-handed. Panicking, Remu rushes in blade first, internally screaming because squaring up against this absolute menace is the last thing she wants, but she's out of options. Before her sword even connects, Sora parries her arm with a flick of his wrist and instantly counters with a devastating hook to her jaw. He doesn't hold back, unleashing an absolute beatdown on her. Barely clinging to consciousness, Rimu desperately wonders why their boss is just standing there watching. Makai just lets out a heavy sigh, roasting his own squad for being trash and loudly questioning if they completely forgot they're heavily nerfed by a curse right now. Deciding to end things himself, he smirks, dedicating his next lethal strike to Mukashima's wife. Spotting the blinding sphere of destruction forming in his hand, 𝚤𝚎𝚘𝚖's blood runs cold, realizing the target is none other than Yoi. He knows jumping in front of that apocalyptic nuke is practically suicide, but with zero alternatives on the table, he forces his Dharma eyes wide open. He frantically pushes his limits, desperate to manifest his ultimate spiritual form before it's too late. But Makai just laughs, mocking the monk for thinking he'd pull a rookie move like Hero and actually let him charge up. 𝚤𝚎𝚘𝚖 instantly realizes he's completely out of time. Rotten Hellbugs, the apostle of Zeus, snarls. His artifact glows blindingly bright, and a catastrophic pillar of lightning erupts, zeroing straight in on the boulder, hiding Sora's mom. Sora flinches, confused by the sudden flash. A millisecond later, the thunderbolt obliterates the rock right next to him, leveling the entire terrain in an ear-splitting explosion. Coughing through the thick smoke, he turns, bracing for impact. But instead of an enemy, his eyes lock onto a smoldering pile of rubble, and his mom's bloodied hand sticking out from the wreckage. Time literally freezes. He screams her name, sprinting blindly toward the crater, when a massive metal shield suddenly slices through the air, right at his neck. "Don't you dare get in my way," he roars violently, batting the weapon aside. but the impact sends a shockwave up his arm, and he instantly realizes the sheer kinetic force behind that throw was on a completely different level than before. Rimu steps out of the dust, a wicked grin on her face, asking if he enjoyed that little sample. The debuff gone. She is fully restored to level 106. Sora grits his teeth against the suffocating aura now radiating off her. He tries to push past, screaming at her to back off, but it's like shoving a titanium wall. Rimu leans in, cruelly spelling it out for him. The only reason that annoying weakening hex finally shattered is because the caster just took her last breath. Snapping, Sora throws a feral, hate-fueled punch, screaming at her to shut her mouth, but she easily sidesteps the wild swing. The kid stumbles back, completely shattered. Watching his eyes go dead, Rimu smirks, knowing she's totally broken his fighting spirit. Mentally fragile humans are her absolute favorite midnight snack. Without hesitating, she blasts him point blank, with a spike of pure divine energy running him straight through. The glowing energy violently swallows him whole, paralyzing his muscles. Believing she just secured the kill, Rimu watches triumphantly as our boy collapses face first into the dirt, but something feels off. Did that even leave a scratch? Puzzled, she powers up her analytical eye to check his vitals, only to visibly recoil in sheer terror. The stats make zero sense. This mortal kid is hoarding more raw divine essence than the literal gods above. Worse, his core isn't just holding the energy, it's acting like a ravenous black hole, violently devouring every ounce of holy magic she throws at him. She's trembling, wondering what kind of cosmic anomaly they're dealing with, especially since he clearly hasn't even figured out how to weaponize this glitchy power yet. Suddenly, the boss's immediate kill order makes perfect, terrifying sense. If this kid figures it out, the entire universe is cooked. Going completely all out, she triggers her sacred vow instantly, buffing both her damage and tankiness by a solid 25%. Screaming at the top of her lungs, she orders Sharia and Iwagaya to jump in, demanding they execute the boy right here, right now. Off to the side, a grinning Hades flexes his newly unsealed magic, instantly materializing his lethal spear for the final strike. Iwagaya grips his blades, sweating bullets as he realizes the clock is ticking. They have to assassinate this anomaly before he undergoes his awakening, because if he ever taps into that endless mana pool, he'll straight up bench press the Pantheon. Rimu charges her ultimate, absolutely certain this is the finale. Meanwhile, Sora is on his knees, weeping uncontrollably as he clutches his mother's limp hand. But wait, a faint shift in the rubble completely changes the game. Her fingers twitch. She's barely hanging on, but she's actually still breathing. Sensing the distraction, the assassins launch a synchronized barrage to pin him down. Yoi weakly reaches up, brushing her fingers against her son's cheek, before her arm drops like a stone. Panic instantly rips through the apostles as their binding spells completely shatter on impact. Ignoring the attacks like they're mere gnats, Sora violently tears through the solid rock with his bare, bleeding hands, sobbing hysterically with every chunk of debris he throws. His mind is totally breaking, refusing to process the nightmare unfolding in front of him. Staring down at the crushed, lifeless forms of the people who raised him, he's utterly paralyzed by grief. With her absolute final ounce of strength, his mom cups his tear-stained face, whispering for him to stop digging. Choking on his tears, he screams that he refuses to let them go. Flashing a tragic, broken smile, she begs him to leave them behind and run. She tells him his childhood ends today, and he has to forge his own destiny from now on, promising that their spirits will forever have his back. Spotting the emotional distraction, Iwagaya realizes this is his perfect window. The assassin completely vanishes, lunging from the shadows with a poisoned dagger, hissing for the kid to drop dead. The lethal tip is literally an inch from Sora's neck, but then, the boy turns his head. A suffocating demonic aura explodes from his body, and in 0.1 seconds, he teleports directly into Iwagaya's personal space. A catastrophic punch connects, launching the rogue across the wasteland like a ragdoll. Mid-air, Iwagaya stares at his hand in absolute horror, realizing his god-tier magical blade was completely pulverized. Terrified out of his mind, the assassin burns all his stamina to sprint behind Rimu for cover. Rimu is practically hyperventilating, screaming that it's impossible for a human to snap a heavenly relic. With just his bare knuckles, realizing their entire squad is completely outmatched. She raises her shield in a panic, but the metal instantly starts buckling. Sora is on her, raining down an absolute merciless storm of pure rage. Every single ruthless back-to-back strike violently pulverizes her barrier, leaving Rimu absolutely frozen in pure, unadulterated panic. Locking eyes with Rimu, our main guy drops the absolute coldest warning he is about to literally rip every single one of them. It clicks. He's literally soaking up their divine energy, leveling up in real time. Without hesitation, our guy launches her across the battlefield. She shrieks at the crew to cut off their magic, but Sora is already blurring toward her. It's too late, his speed is absolutely cracked. Dodging isn't an option. The impact sends her rocketing through the air like a ragdoll. Watching this go down, Iwagaya is low-key terrified, realizing they aren't fighting a human, They're fighting an absolute unit. Sora's eyes lock onto Iwagaya next. He closes the distance in a flash. Panic sets in for the rogue. How the hell did this kid spot him? It shouldn't be possible. Not only is Sora leeching their aura, but he also saw right through Iwagaya's top-tier camouflage like it was nothing. Hades barks a laugh, taunting Sora for flexing so hard while making a massive rookie mistake. He calls him out for abandoning his mom, who is literally hanging on by a thread just to brawl. Suzumi steps up, declaring he won't let Hades pull any dirty tricks. Suzumi rushes the dark god but gets brutally punted away as Hades tells him to drop dead. Sora screams Suzumi's name. Pivoting hard, he rushes the god with pure rage boiling in his veins. Off to the side, Iwagaya is practically taking notes, impressed by Hades' ruthless bait. Hades smirks, hook, line, and sinker. He roars at the kid to eat dirt, unleashing a blinding massive wave of hellfire right at him. Sora curses as the heat hits. As the dark smoke billows, Hades watches, waiting to see a charred corpse. But as the dust clears, our boy is still standing, shields up. Hades just grins. If the kid wants to absorb magic, he's gonna feed him until he explodes. He unleashes another massive volley of infernal flames. Watching from afar, Reimu facepalms, realizing this bozo is basically just handing Sora free XP. Magic is useless. Throwing hands is useless. They know this, and Sora knows this. He mocks them, calling their efforts totally pathetic, literally punching the hellfire out of existence. But mid-flex panic spikes. He catches movement out of the corner of his eye, a barrage of boulders whistling straight toward his mom. Reimu smirks. Sure, she can't blast him directly, but she can definitely infuse boulders with raw aura and snipe them like literal missile strikes. One hit, and his mom is gone. Sora screams at the witch, wildly swatting the incoming projectiles away with his bare hands. But the sheer volume is too much. Several jagged rocks slam violently into his body. Seeing him flinch, Reimu rallies the squad, ordering a full-on spam attack. It's an absolute meteor shower of debris. They want Mukushima wiped off the map. Sora pushes beyond his limits, desperately deflecting the lethal barrage. He's taking heavy damage, blood flying everywhere just to act as a human shield. Seeing her boy get shredded, his mom breaks down, sobbing for him to just let it go. Sora roars his refusal, refusing to budge an inch. Eyes glowing with killing intent, he vows to slaughter every single one of them. To him, breathing means nothing if his family doesn't survive. Makai slow claps, mocking the emotional family drama before spitting that it honestly just makes his stomach turn. A heavy, menacing weapon materializes in his grip. He sneers, asking who cares if the kid has an energy drain cheat code. Because he's about to hit the delete button on this whole fight, using the legendary Blade of Atropos. Makai explains the brutal lore. This weapon literally snips the threads of destiny. It slices right through any magic barrier. And fired as an arrow, it's an unblockable one-shot. He lines up the crosshairs ready to end the kid's entire storyline. Suddenly, 𝚤𝚎𝚘 starts hacking up a lung, choking out that the aura in the air is pure poison. He screams at Sora to dip immediately, but Iwagaya presses a cold dagger against 𝚤𝚘𝚘's throat, whispering that he really shouldn't be backseat gaming right now. Meanwhile, Sora is still tanking the rock barrage, muscles burning, mind racing as he senses the ultimate threat locking on. Tears mix with dirt on his face as the fatal strike launches. In that split second, his mom calls his name gently, pressing a torn cloth into his palm, whispering her final, heartbreaking goodbye. Then boom, the thunderstrike vaporizes her. Makai just watches coldly as his devastating arrow levels the entire arena into a smoking crater. A cold system prompt echoes. The sacrifice to Zeus is locked in. The pantheon is hyped. Makai drops to the rubble, as Reimu nervously questions if the monster is finally in the grave. Makai brushes it off. Zeus gave it a 5-star rating, and honestly, they have bigger fish to fry. Every top-tier guild is going to view this nuke as a formal declaration of war. They need to brace for impact. Cut to a completely different spot on the map. A body splashes heavily into freezing water. Sora sinks into the dark depths of a massive, jagged underground cavern. A rough-looking soldier drags his soaking, bruised body onto dry land. Sora's mind is a blurry mess. Is he a ghost? What server is this? And a crushing panic hits. Where are his parents? He whispers broken pleas, begging the universe not to take them away. His eyes snap open, gasping for air. The grizzled soldier looks down, noting the kid is finally back online. Sora chokes on his own tears, repeating that he was supposed to be their shield. The veteran just scoffs, telling him to dry his eyes. Grown men don't leak like that. He calls it weak. Blinking through the blur, Sora demands to know who this guy is. The stranger just gives him the cold shoulder. Desperate, our boy presses on, asking if this dude was his savior, and pleading for any crumbs of intel on his mom and dad. The man glances back, visually sizing him up. He deadpans that, for a so-called chosen one, Sora is looking like absolute trash tier. Time for a brutal reality check. His parents traded their HP for his. They are gone. Now he needs to shut up and fall in line. Denial kicks in hard. Sora violently twists away, snapping that he's going back to the drop zone, ordering the guy to back off. He winds up for a punch, only to realize his muscles feel like wet noodles. Zero strength, zero mana. The soldier barks at him to drop the attitude, telling him to quit acting like a toddler, before casually tossing him to the dirt. He glares down, asking if this is the kind of garbage respect he shows the guy who pulled him from the Reaper's grip. He makes it crystal clear the hands that saved him can snap his neck just as easily. Sora groans, clutching his bruised ribs weakly, calling out. The veteran drops the bombshell. That Atropos blade didn't just hurt him, it permanently severed his connection to the gods. Without that divine armor, he's just a squishy level 1 NPC. The soldier jams his sword into the rock, dropping a major tease about the VIP they are about to meet. The dude offers him a straight-up lifeline. He can reconnect him to that divine energy and actually teach him how to wield it without blowing himself up. Then, he pops the million-dollar question, are you coming or what? Sora's knuckles turn white from gripping his fists so hard, absolutely fuming, but he swallows his pride. He locks eyes with the soldier, grabs his hand, and locks in. He's down for the ride. But the soldier hits him with a harsh reality check, telling him not to get it twisted. He isn't some knight in shining armor from this second forward. They are straight-up ops. He tells the kid to stay paranoid and watch his back. But right before things escalate, a random voice echoes through the area, begging them to hold up. The soldier instantly snaps his head back, demanding to know who's lurking in the shadows. Enter 𝚙𝚘𝚘𝚖. The guy steps up, stating straight facts. There is zero chance he's letting the kid of his fallen best friends walk away with a total stranger. A genuine smile finally breaks across Sora's face the second he recognizes the monk. But the vibe gets heavy fast as 𝚙𝚘𝚘𝚖 bows his head, completely guilt-ridden for failing to keep the boy's father breathing. The monk confesses he only made it out alive through pure dumb luck. The shockwave from that massive strike literally launched him deep underground. But now that he's breathing, he swears on his life to honor the promise he made to Sora's parents. He glares daggers at the soldier, making it crystal clear if this guy uses the kid's god-tier abilities for some twisted villain arc, there will be hell to pay. The soldier just scoffs, mocking the monk for spitting such massive threats while literally standing on his deathbed. 𝚙𝚘𝚘𝚖 takes the roast on the chin. He admits he was totally pathetic for desperately clinging to his own survival and being terrified of dying, offering absolutely zero excuses for his cowardice. But he stands his ground, basically saying that if he fumbles this final mission, he won't even be able to look his old friends in the eyes when they reunite in the afterlife. The soldier rolls his eyes, telling the battered monk to drop the tough guy act and just let the kid make his own moves. Sora gently calls out the monk's name, dropping some brutal honesty. He desperately wants to catch a body right here and now, but he knows his stats are way too low. So if becoming someone's pawn gets him his ultimate revenge, he is totally down for it. He officially locks in his choice to leave with the enemy. 𝚙𝚘𝚘𝚖 reads the intense resolve in the kid's eyes and totally gets it. With a heavy sigh, he calls out to Sora, realizing he has to let him cook. He steps aside, refusing to block his path. But before they bounce, the monk hands over an absolutely sick katana, revealing it's the final heirloom left behind by his mom and dad. The second Sora's fingers wrap around the hilt, the energy is undeniable. He zeroes in on the blade, instantly recognizing the familiar aura of his parents pulsing through the steel, but he senses something way deeper lurking inside it too. 𝚙𝚘𝚘𝚖 catches his reaction and asks if he can sense the juice. He drops some heavy lore. This isn't just any blade. It's an ancestral relic passed down through a massive lineage of absolute legends. It literally downloads and stores the memories of every single warrior who ever swung it, even if that feature stays dormant most of the time. Sora is mind-blown, muttering about a sword that actually remembers its masters. The monk nods, adding that his dad Yohei had complete faith the boy would one day be worthy of its power, basically making it his birthright now. Our boy thinks to himself that unlocking this thing might actually require some insane future sight abilities. The soldier impatiently cuts in, asking if this dramatic soap opera is finally wrapping up, and Sora gives him the green light. Deep down, he can't help but complain about his crazy RNG. It seriously feels like he's just pinballing from one massive chaotic disaster straight into another. Like bro just barely pulled off a great escape, managed to reunite with his folks, and now he's instantly getting dragged off to some unknown location again. He's questioning his entire trajectory right now, totally clueless about what kind of insane boss fight is waiting at the finish line. The trio then starts trekking deeper into the pitch-black cavern. 𝚙𝚘𝚘𝚖 is completely shook, marveling at how a subterranean space this ridiculously huge even exists. Meanwhile, the soldier is just incredibly annoyed, demanding to know why the hell the boomer monk is still third-wheeling them. The monk claps back smoothly, claiming he's just tagging along to play bodyguard for his fallen friend's kid. That response instantly triggers the soldier's temper. The guy snaps, pointing out the obvious. They could literally wipe the floor with him right now if they felt like it. So playing the protector role is a complete joke. But 𝚙𝚘𝚘𝚖 shakes his head, saying he's missing the point. Confused and ticked off, the soldier demands to know what kind of delusional protection he's talking about. 𝚙𝚘𝚘𝚖 stares him down and deadpans that he's fully ready to use himself as a meat shield. He rants about how Yohei used to constantly preach about trusting the process and following the master plan for a guaranteed win, but looking around at this absolute bloodbath, that strategy clearly tanked. The monk is officially done with all this cryptic prophecy garbage. From here on out, the only thing he's betting his chips on is his own raw willpower to stay breathing. Sora shoots him a nervous side eye, clearly stressed about the vibes. The soldier just shrugs it off, basically telling the monk he can tag along, but the second they step into the god's arena, he better stay completely sidelined. Our boy zones out, staring into the abyss, letting his mind wander. Suddenly, his mother's final words hit him like a truck, her insisting that as long as he made it out alive, they caught the ultimate W. It hits him that maybe this chaotic survival route was exactly the endgame his mom was praying for. Meanwhile, 𝚤𝚎𝚘𝚖 changes the subject, bringing up this supposed deity, locked away in the underground setup. He calls out the soldier, questioning if this entity actually packs legitimate god-tier stats, or if it's just pure hype and cap. The soldier scoffs, visibly offended by the disrespect. He snaps back that the monk is about to find out the hard way, promising that the absolute millisecond he lays eyes on this being, every single doubt will be completely vaporized. Suddenly, Sora's danger sense goes totally crazy. A massive pressure drops on the room, making him sweat and wonder what kind of insane cosmic boss this guy is actually hyping up. The soldier steps right up to the threshold, declaring with dead seriousness that they are about to stand before a name that you absolutely do not mess around with. Cutting the chit-chat, he announces they've finally hit the destination. Sora's jaw drops at the massive scale of the boss room. Without missing a beat, the soldier raises a hand intensely, focusing his mana. He dramatically announces that he's using the raw flames in his palm as an offering to summon the deity. Instantly, crackling waves of pure divine energy start manifesting right in thin air. A crazy glowing sigil of 3 overlapping triangles flashes into existence, triggering the colossal stone doors to grind open. The soldier gestures for Sora to step inside alone, dropping the bombshell that the monk just got denied entry by the VIP list. 𝚤𝚎𝚘𝚖 is forced to chill on standby in the hallway. Before the kid steps through, the monk gives him one last serious reality check. Do not underestimate whatever is lurking in that cavern. He warns that the kid's internal mana is basically a walking cheat code, and this shady god will absolutely try to hijack it. Sora gives a tight nod, locking in before the soldier barks at him to hurry up and move. Standing right on the edge of the absolute unknown, the soldier gives him the final push. He tells the boy to step into the darkness, because the literal god of deception and flames is ready for his audience. Sora chews on that super sketchy title for a second. But honestly, he decides he couldn't care less if this celestial being wants to team up, manipulate him, or treat him like a disposable battery. Because at the end of the day, our boy plans on being the one holding the controller. With pure ice in his veins, he breaches the room, taking the steps down into the shadows without a single flinch. Suddenly, a massive glowing magic circle boots up right under his sneakers. As the kid snaps his eyes downward, the sheer shockwave of god-level energy violently rips through the cave, hitting 𝚤𝚎𝚘𝚖 outside like a localized earthquake. Sora stared straight up at a colossal entity, towering over a massive throne. He didn't even break his stride. Asterisk. This guy is an absolute unit times, he thought. Were all deities this towering lord of lies and hellfire? His hunch was dead on. It was Loki, the Norse trickster himself. But something was seriously off. The god's flesh looked completely wrecked, literally decaying right in front of his eyes, like a walking corpse. Loki's massive eyelids peeled open. Took you long enough, the god rumbled. But a split second later, the deity was completely caught off guard. This kid wasn't shaking, not even a flinch. He was locked in a dead stare. Realizing he wasn't dealing with your average mortal, Loki cut straight to the chase, looking for payback for your dead family. Sora didn't skip a beat. That is the whole reason I am standing here. The trickster explained that his artifact was the only thing keeping his godly juice flowing, and patching up that divine connection was going to cost him big time. Sora doubled down, promising to fix that broken link and play along with whatever sick game Loki had in mind. It was exactly the answer the god was waiting for. Total silence filled the room. Not good enough for you, Sora pushed, but the deity was actually stunned. Our boy made his demands crystal clear. He didn't just want a taste of divine energy. He craved absolute, overwhelming dominance to literally flatten anyone in his way. Can you actually give me that kind of juice? He challenged. You arrogant little punk, Loki snarled, using invisible gravity to rip Sora through the air toward him. Who gave you the right to run your mouth like that? The massive god snatched him up in one fist. Even while being crushed, Sora smirked. You dragged me all the way down here because you are desperate. You are planning to siphon my divine aura and use it to jumpstart that pathetic rotting shell of a body. Furious Loki called him a disrespectful parasite and tightened his massive grip, nearly crushing his bones. Gasping for air, Sora barked back, "Am I wrong? Because if I am off the mark, go ahead, snap my neck and try taking my power by force." Loki scoffed, complaining that the kid had way too much lip. Or maybe, you just cannot do it, Sora countered. The giant god let out a heavy, exhausted sigh. He completely folded. Sora hit the nail on the head. Even though the boy's energy was strictly Norse, the god was physically incapable of stealing it. Looks like we are on level ground then, Sora shot back. Asterisk, I knew at times, he thought to himself. That crazy energy he soaked up back in the tower was 100% Norse. And if a heavy hitter like Loki, literally the second in command of the entire Norse pantheon, couldn't forcibly rip it out of a mortal, that meant they had to play this like a business deal. The trickster lowered a single massive finger, muttering that this human had insane audacity. Sora casually dapped up the giant finger. I am going to take that as a yes. The deity leaned in, his voice dropping low, reminding him how the old legends usually played out. Anyone who disrespected him ended up 6 feet under. Unfazed, Sora clapped back, that throwing around cheap threats completely ruined his legendary master manipulator vibe. Loki just groaned. You are an absolute headache, he complained, hacking up a harsh cough before getting back to business. Look, the clock is ticking for me anyway. I am just going to give you the short version. Watching him struggle, Sora realized the god wasn't faking it. He was literally running on fumes, a hollow shadow of his former self. Since we are officially teaming up, consider this my peace offering, Loki declared. When Sora asked for the game plan, the deity told him to head straight back to the spire. The protagonist instantly pictured the massive structure. Loki dropped a huge lore bomb. There were actually 16 of these monoliths scattered across Earth, every single one acting as a vault for a different god's raw essence. Every Norse spire, except for his personal one, had been busted wide open, but surprisingly, 0 gods from the other pantheons had managed to wake up yet. Still, there was no way they were letting outsiders hijack their divine loot. Confused, Sora asked what was holding the other deities back from waking up. The giant angrily pulverized a rock in his fist. We were stabbed in the back, he growled, promising to spill the tea on that drama later. But the main takeaway was simple. The Greek pantheon was public enemy number 1. Knowing the kid needed game-breaking stats to wipe out his targets, Loki was finally ready to hand over the cheat codes. He even let him pick his own poison. Option 1. Swallow the apocalyptic hellfire of the giant 𝚙𝚘𝚘. That blaze would literally torch every flaw out of his system, forging his energy into an untainted primordial godly force that he could weaponize on command. The catch: he had to constantly feed the fire with his own life force. Slip up, and 𝚙𝚘𝚘's blaze would instantly vaporize him into dust. Option 2. Physically implant the seed of the world tree 𝚙𝚘𝚘𝚘 straight into his flesh. This would mutate his anatomy into a living, breathing vessel for divine magic, letting him bend godly energy like it was second nature. But grinding out that evolution would literally take centuries. Sora ran the math. The hellfire was a lethal parasite, while the world tree was the slowest slow burn imaginable. Smirking, Loki revealed a hidden third route, forcefully jam both together. Yggdrasil would grow at breakneck speed by devouring the hellfire, while the flames would scorch the tree's magical branches instead of deep-frying his organs. But the endgame for this crazy build was pure destruction. Eventually, the sheer weight of Ragnarok itself would come crashing down to obliterate him. One single slip in focus, and he was instant charcoal. With the cards on the table, the god leaned back, waiting to see which suicidal path the kid would take. Sora didn't hesitate. You never actually planned on giving me a choice anyway. He locked in the third option, fusing the 2 lethal powers. A massive, booming laugh erupted from Loki. Now that is what I am talking about. Instantly, the protagonist felt like his veins were pumped with molten lava. A glowing cursed sigil burned itself onto the back of his hand, while the mythical seed materialized in his palm. 𝚙𝚘𝚘's apocalyptic flames started violently searing his flesh. Watching the show, Loki grinned, noting that these 2 violently opposed forces were finally clashing and binding together. Man, the trickster chuckled. Who would have ever guessed that the entire future of the Norse pantheon would end up resting in the hands of a random kid? Cut to the other side of the city. 𝚤𝚘𝚘 suddenly snapped his head up, his instincts screaming. What the hell is that? He muttered, realizing his own mana was being violently siphoned away. He knew he couldn't let a single soul get anywhere near that Norse spire. Meanwhile, in a totally different sector, a massive guild war was brewing as Makai charged up a lethal, high-voltage lightning strike. May's jaw practically hit the floor. The guildmaster boldly declared this as the 17th tower, claiming their squad was destined to completely crush it. Loki just stared down with dead eyes, completely unbothered. Meanwhile, Sora was agonizingly screaming, pushing his body to the absolute limit, trying to forcefully mash these 2 insane powers together. Peeking through the cracked door, the soldier and 𝚙𝚘𝚘𝚘 watched in pure disbelief. This absolute madman was actually trying to jam 2 violently opposing energies into his own veins. 𝚙𝚘𝚘𝚘 desperately screamed for our boy to hang in there. Sora gritted his teeth, fighting like hell to keep the raging storm of energy inside him from tearing his flesh apart. But suddenly everything faded to pitch black. He was hurled straight back into the void. Blinking into the darkness, Sora questioned if his mind had just trapped him in his own subconscious, and caught sight of a massive towering sapling. Was that seriously the world tree seed they just planted? It was stupidly huge. Glancing over his shoulder, his eyes locked onto a colossal giant casually chilling with a book. The massive dude shifted his gaze, staring dead straight at him. The Titan rumbled, claiming that through this wild divine aura, he could peer right into Sora's tragic backstory. He saw a mind totally wrecked, reduced to a crispy wasteland, completely torched by unyielding rage. Acting as Yggdrasil's ultimate messenger, he dropped the pity card, claiming he was sick of seeing innocent kids getting orphaned, and urged our MC to heal his shattered mindscape back into a thriving paradise. Sora gave a cold smirk, saying thanks for the pity party, but knew damn well a deal like this had massive strings attached. The giant hit back, framing it as a sweet win-win situation. Make me your ultimate guardian. Sora squinted super skeptical, when out of nowhere a vicious voice warned him to wake up and stop getting played. In a flash of brutal steel, the giant's head gets flawlessly sliced clean off its neck. The wicked axe zipped right back like a deadly boomerang snatched out of the air by a fierce spirit. She immediately exposed the Titan, claiming his only goal was turning Sora into Yggdrasil's personal lapdog. The grand master plan tossed the whole freaking planet into a blender to act as miracle grow for the world tree. The headless Titan calmly reaches up to his severed stump. Flesh aggressively stitches together as his head pops right back into place. He immediately fires back, warning that 𝚙𝚘's twisted endgame is infinitely worse, since that psycho literally wants to deep fry the entire universe into nothing but dust. 𝚙𝚘 steps up to the plate, challenging the giant's trash talk, and instantly, the tension spikes as they lock into a heavy death glare. 𝚙𝚘 practically mocks the giant, asking if he's totally blind to the kid's mind, pointing out that aside from a pathetic, rotting stump, Sora's soul is already a scorched, apocalyptic nightmare. The Titan shrugs it off, throwing his hands up. If that's how it is, the ball is entirely in the mortal's court. The ultimate decision rests on his shoulders alone. But before you lock in your answer, you better read the fine print. He slides a glowing parchment over. Sora cautiously grabs it, instantly realizing he's holding the legendary manual of the Aesir. To upgrade from a basic human to a literal god-tier entity, you gotta pass 3 insane hurdles. Step 1. Pick a divine sugar daddy guardian to back your play, officially slapping the candidate label on you. Step 2. Take a terrifying dive straight into the abyss, and absolutely demolish the rival competitors in a bloody battle royale. Step 3. Survive as the undisputed final boss, snagging your patron god's overpowered weapon, and gaining full admin rights over the tower. Now, these guardians aren't just for show, they aggressively monitor their chosen Aesir, throw any disrespect at your deity, and they have full clearance to smite you into oblivion and repo your divine buffs instantly. Rocking that holy weapon lets the chosen champion unleash their god's pure, unadulterated fury in combat. 𝚙𝚘 coldly scoffs, calling the giant a gutless coward, who should have been roasted into oblivion centuries ago. Meanwhile, Sora is just standing there mind blown that 2 legendary titans are having a massive turf war over who gets to sponsor him. Yggdrasil coldly claps back, telling the fiery spirit he's completely out of his league. Our boy just takes a mental step back. 2 absolute cosmic powerhouses throwing hands over him. Any average Joe would have literally flatlined from the sheer pressure in the room. Simultaneously, they snap their attention to him, demanding his final answer. Sora just smirks, telling them they completely misread the room. You guys are flexing like, I should be kissing your feet for this little handout. Suddenly, a terrifying aura explodes from him. He shifts, forms declaring that picking a side is totally irrelevant, since either way, he's just wearing their leash. Sora's eyes glow with menace. That's a hard pass. Actually, you 2 are gonna be my puppets. I've already hijacked your juice, so drop the god complex right now. Panic sets in as 𝚙𝚘 aggressively thrashes, trying to rip himself out of Sora's iron grip. But our MC violently drains his essence like a vampire. Without missing a beat, he lunges at Yggdrasil, ruthlessly absorbing its life force too. Wiping his mouth, he drops a cold-blooded flex, moving forward. These so-called gods are nothing more than late-night snacks. Snapping back to reality, his consciousness hits the physical realm. Loki smugly asks, who won the bid? Internally laughing, since it didn't mean Jack Sora was already playing right into his sinister trap. But Sora simply raises his palm, telling the trickster to use his own eyes. There it was, both divine sigils violently stitched together into one. He drops a sarcastic thanks for the boost and turns his back to walk away. Loki's smugness instantly shatters. Staring at the bizarre tattoo, his brain short-circuits. Did this absolute monster actually force merge 2 opposing god tiers into his own flesh? Boom. The 17th tower just officially birthed its very first Aesir contender. A massive system alert drops the lethal combo of Rebirth and Ruin, is now fully unlocked for early access. Makai starts sweating, shook that some random player just blitzed past his progress. Mei instantly goes on high alert, paranoid that the ferocious Tiger Squad pulled off this insane stunt. Kicking into overdrive, the entire crew sprints forward, shouting that they need to crash that location immediately before it's too late. Yo, what is up, guys? Did this insane chapter absolutely blow your mind, or what? Because I am totally hooked. If you want to catch the next epic breakdown, smash that subscribe button and drop a massive like. Catch you absolute legends in the next recap video. Peace out.